Okay, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you, members of council, staff, and the general public. Welcome to our March 15th regular council meeting. I do have a motion moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Sam McDonnell. Be resolved that the March 15th, 2021 council meeting of the Township of South Glengarry now be opened at 7 p.m. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. If I can ask everyone to please rise for the playing of our national anthem. Mrs. Campo.
Just a moment.
Okay, thank you, Kelly, for that. Before we move into our regular council meeting, just a few comments and words, as we have two people retiring at the end of March. We have Mr. Gary Poupart from our building department that will be retiring at the end of March, and also Kevin Pelly from our roads department will be retiring. So just to acknowledge Mr. Poupart, if you can put your camera on for a moment, if you would, please. Thank you. So Mr. Poupart joined South Glengarry in the fall of 2009 as the manager of property standards, bylaw enforcement, and building official. Gary brought years of knowledge to the township from working for other municipalities in building and planning and in the private sector. For the past 12 years, Gary has worked with many property owners, contractors, and tradesmen due to the thousands of properties and building inspections he completed and the applications that he reviewed. In 2019, Gary proudly became the chief building official for the Township of South Glengarry and managed the building and bylaw department. So Gary, on behalf of council, staff, and all the residents of South Glengarry, we thank you for the last 12 years of your service, and we wish you all the best in your retirements and hope that you have an opportunity to spend more time with your family and in your gardens and on your local farm. So congratulations to you, sir. There'll be a formal presentation better done towards the end of the month on the official day of your retirement. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, council. It's been a pleasure and definitely an opportunity that I wasn't expecting 12 years ago. I was hoping to move out to South Glengarry to retire, but this job came up and it was a perfect fit. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. And I want to thank all my team and all the staff that I've worked with over the years. We've always, I believe, worked as a family.
Okay, thanks very much. And again, enjoy your retirement at the end of March.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the second one is Mr. Kevin Pelly. My understanding is he's watching us on YouTube with his family. So Mr. Pelly was born and raised in South Lancaster, and he eventually moved to Alberta in his 20s, where he lived and worked for many years. As fate would have it, he met his future wife, Marietta, a Glengarry girl, and they eventually made their move back to South Glengarry. They would settle in Williamstown and raise their two beautiful daughters, Katie and Tara. Many of our Glengarry residents will recognize Kevin as the fellow who operates the grader during the summer and the snowplow during the winter, among many other things. Kevin was also a South Glengarry volunteer fireman for many years. Kevin has a special talent of making people laugh with his stories and his sense of humor. Kevin became a grandfather to Malcolm and Oakland in the spring of 2020, and there is no doubt that he'll be spending a lot of his time entertaining his grandchildren. We want to thank Kevin for his 28 years and his dedicated service, and wishing him a happy and healthy retirement. So Kevin, on behalf of council, thank you very much for your 28 years of service. Again, on the final day of your retirement, there'll be more of the formal retirement engagement. But on behalf of council, staff, and all the residents of South Glengarry, thanks for your 28 years of service and all the work you did for all our residents in South Glengarry. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move to the approval of the agenda. So I have a motion moved by Lyle Warden, second by Martin Lang. Be resolved that the council of the Township of South Glengarry approve the agenda. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda, Madam Clerk?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, we have one item that's been requested to be moved from information only into other business. That item being number 7C1, the Environment Committee minutes, and that was requested by Councillor Jaworski.
Okay, thank you. So we'll put that under other business as, I guess, under dog tags will be number 2. Is there anything further from other members of council? Not seeing none, so the motion would be as amended. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. Number 4, is there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Not seeing none. I have a motion moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of South Glengarry held on March 1st, 2021, including the closed session minutes, be adopted as circulated. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. I have a motion moved by Martin Lang, second by Lyle Warden. Be resolved that the minutes of the special meeting of the Council of the Township of South Glengarry held on February 25th, 2021 be adopted as circulated. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Okay, we'll move right into our presentations and delegations. So the first up this evening is XL Wood request. Mr. Irvin Vasquez, I believe he's on the phone. So Irvin, whenever you're ready to speak, just please unmute yourself and go right ahead.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and Council. I am the owner of XL Wood. Unfortunately, we had a tragic fire towards the end of November. Our company has been in Green Valley for close to 30 years. I purchased the company over 7 years ago. Technically, it was a bankrupt company. With my previous experience, we were able to turn things around. We had, before the fire, we're doing $7 million sales. We employed close to 40 people locally. We try to encourage and work with enterprises in the area. Like I said, we had close to 40 employees. Most likely, I guess, probably not a single employee at minimum wage. Wages varied from starting at 16 when people came in, but as soon as we saw potential in them, we very rapidly increased them. We have various employees at over $28 an hour. We tried to be a good citizen of the township, and unfortunately, after the fire, We are looking to rebuild. Definitely, we would like to rebuild and stay in Green Valley and encourage the local economy as much as we could, but we have a couple of demands. We are less than a kilometer, I think less than a kilometer from Highway 34. And we're looking at an investment between $2 and $3 million to build even slightly larger than what we had before. But there is half load season, the load restrictions. From what I was told by the previous owner, we had an exemption when we approached the city to verify that. They said they don't find anything on file. And basically, if we cannot keep on running this less than a kilometer stretch in the load restriction period, we have no choice. And again, I'm not trying to like threaten, but the fact of the matter is we can't afford to close down our business for 2 months out of the year. So we would need an exemption for that stretch of less than a kilometer. And also there is a new requirement for the permit, the water management and so further. We have been in touch with LaSalle Engineering, and he's explained it all to me. We have hired LaSalle to work with us. As a matter of fact, we had given the contract for the surveyor to do all his work so LaSalle could continue to do the work afterwards. And we were told by the surveyor that there is nothing that he can do before all the snow has melted. Therefore, we ask, there is a pre-engineered portable building, which they call a fold-away, an APCO fold-away building, that we should be able to erect that temporary. They are temporary buildings. It's like the whole building is erected probably in 2 days or less. It's literally a fold-away building. We had sent in today some information that it is acceptable buildings by the government, so we can put that up, because the way we see, it might take from 6 months to a year so we can get our permits. And in order to be able to keep our customers, to keep our employees, we need to be able to produce on an ongoing basis. Therefore, we ask if we can be excluded from that load restrictions of less than a kilometer, and a temporary building being installed in order so we can continue production.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pescas. Just a question in regards to the half load restrictions. Are you asking that to be permanent? Like on an annual basis, to be exempt from that? Or is it just while you're building?
No, for an ongoing thing, because if we can't bring in material and ship out material for 2 or 3 months a year, it causes, well, we can't basically shut down our company for 2 or 3 months a year.
No, okay, I just wanted to get clarification. So it's on an annual basis is what you're looking for in respect to that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll open up questions to members of council. So if there's any members of council that have quick questions or comments for Mr. Mezek? Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We had done a road study a few years ago, and I was just wondering if there was any mention of that, the shape of that road, where it sits along that study, because if we approve it, then there's going to be definitely increased deterioration. I'm just wondering if that road is in a situation at this moment where it would support, full loads during the half load season.
Okay, I will relay to Mr. LeBlanc if he has any comments in regards to that road, but I can assure you, Mr. Warden, that we are doing a new road study, which I believe is coming in the
Yes.
next couple of weeks, I believe. Mr. LeBlanc, can you just give us a quick update? And if you know the road enough to tell us how the condition of the road, I guess, what it's in right now.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Concession Road 8 is at best in the springtime very weak. It would have to be strengthened probably for Mr. Pasquez's request. There is a road study going on as we speak. We will be in contact with them this week. They're going to finalize. I have got them to review Concession Road 8 again due to this request. So we should know probably by the end of the week, early next week.
Okay, and do we know, Mr. LeBlanc, if we have any water lines or anything in the ground towards closer to 34, or septic lines or sewer lines?
I don't believe there are any sewer lines in that location.
Okay, thank you. Any further, Mr. Deputy Mayor Warden?
Well, I respectfully would, the lagoon is right between 34 and XL Wood. So I would think that there at some point, whether it crosses in a small location, Dylan's coming on. I believe there is. Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'll go to Mr. Seguin to see if he's aware. Go ahead, Mr. Seguin.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, we do have a gravity between the 34 and approximately half a kilometer up to the pump station. And then from the pump station to the rest of the way to the lagoon, we have a force main, which is on the south side of Concession Road 8. So we do have a force main on the south side, and we do have gravity for about half a kilometer up to the pump station from the 34.
Are they under the road, both of them?
The force main is off the road on the south side of the road. The gravity 8-inch line is directly.
I didn't catch that. Sorry, the 8-inch line is
So the 8-inch gravity line is directly center of the road,
center of the road.
up to the pump station on the south
And
side.
it's about a half a kilometer, you said?
About half a kilometer. Saying half a kilometer tonight, but I can confirm that.
Yeah, that's fine. It's an average. Yeah. Center line about half. Okay, thank you. Any further, Mr. Deputy Mayor Warden?
I would just question the timeline. I understand Mr. XL would like it done as soon as possible. I think for council to make a decision tonight for like a long-term thing, I think we need to get a little more information. While I do want XL Wood to stay put, we have to be mindful of the cost that could incur the municipality over the long term. But I am certainly would love to see him stay where he is, but I think we need a little more information. What is the timeline that, for this project?
Well, I think Mr. Pasquet knows that this is just a presentation, that it'll go back to staff for further information and come back at a later council meeting. Our next council meeting now is not for 3 weeks. So I'm hoping that we can get some more information to come back for two things. One is what it would cost us to bring that road up to a standard where we can remove the half loads for that 1 kilometer. And I guess we'd have to have some comment or some questions in regards to who would pay that extra cost to have that road brought up. I'll go to Councillor Jaworski and then Councillor Martineau.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So first, I just wanted to express that when I did hear of the fire at XL Wood Products, that I was very sad to hear that, and I'm happy to see that Mr. Pasquet is looking at rebuilding his business, and I do hope to build on what Deputy Mayor Warden has said already, that I do hope that we can work with him to be able to help him maintain his business and build back from the fire. But again, obviously there's some more information that we do need, but I do hope that we can work with him and be creative, as long as we have all the information we need to make sure that it's the right financial decision for the township.
Okay, thank you. And I agree 100%. It's my comments for everything is we need to work with our residents, and here's an opportunity. Hopefully it's a win-win on both sides. But Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I agree with everything that's been said so far. I do caution on providing this right now, but I guess we'll see what staff says. I did just take a look quick. It's 300 meters that our pipe would be under the road to the pump house, and then it's 975 meters to the 34. So it's splitting hairs. It's 1 kilometer. Maybe
Say
we.
that again, sorry.
I said we're 300 meters with our pipe under the road in that section, and it's 975. But I maybe look at, maybe there's an option for this spring if maybe staff can take a look at this. I think I don't know if we have full load restriction on the side road, the quarry road we call it, or where Crookshanks Quarry is or Coco's Quarry is. Maybe there's an alternate route there. Maybe it's a bit of a diversion for a year, but we can work with the landowner in XL Wood to get the road up to spec, whether it's through cost sharing or whatever we deem proper.
Okay, thank you. So what will occur right now, Ms. Pasek, is the information will go back to administration. So it'll go to 2 different departments. One will be the roads department in regards to the half load restrictions. And then the other one would go back to the building department in regards to the temporary building that you're asked for. So they will bring back information to council at one of our future council meetings, hopefully at our next one. But again, our next council meeting is not for 3 weeks. So once we have that information, we can then have a discussion as a full council and hopefully come up with some type of resolution or solution in regards to helping you out with the half loads. But we will not be able to make that the decision this evening until we have more information from our management staff here at the township.
I appreciate the opportunity to present my case, and definitely we want to stay in Green Valley if only possible, and we hope to work with the city to be able to resolve all these matters.
Well, we appreciate that, and we appreciate you staying in Green Valley, and we hope you we hope your business grows in the future years to come. But we are certainly here as a council to work with our local businesses here in our township. So we'll do whatever we can to try and help you, but we just need more information back from our administrators. So thanks very much for your presentation, and we will get back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next presentation is food cycle for municipalities. I believe we have Alex Heyman on the line. Alex, if you want to, there you are.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Thank you very much for hosting me tonight. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. I'm going to start my screen share, and please let me know if you can also see my screen okay.
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Thank you very much for hosting me again. I'd like to make a presentation today of approximately 10 to 12 minutes that has gone to the Environment Committee already, and then I'd like to leave a few minutes in case any members of council have any questions. So my name is Alex Heyman, and I'm here with a company called Food Cycler. We're a Canadian company based out of Ottawa, and we're focused on providing solutions to combat the food waste problem, which is a major component of climate change and a major cost for municipalities. Our business has several aspects to it. We work with several brands in direct-to-consumer markets, such as Vitamix and Breville. We offer commercial food waste recycling solutions for large food waste generators. And more recently, we've started working with municipalities to combat food waste at a municipal scale. Overall, the problem is that in Canada, we generate a lot of food waste that has both environmental and financial consequences. Many of these stats, I'm sure you've seen similar ones or heard similar ones before. The reason we're focused mostly on municipalities right now is that food waste is really a problem that has a strong municipal impact. In Canada, our landfills are often run by local government, and they cost a very large amount of money to operate. Our landfills are filling up fast, which is causing both cost and environmental issues as our waste needs to be sent further away and in a more expensive manner. Typically, up to half of our material that is going to landfill is organic material, which is why removing it can have a significant impact on our landfill's lifespan. From the environmental aspect, sending organic material to landfill produces methane, which is many times more harmful than CO2. As an example, taking a ton of food waste out of the waste stream is equivalent to taking a car off the road for an entire year. And finally, in our communities, if we can get food out of the garbage, you don't have to collect it as often, it doesn't smell as much, and we're not going to attract as many animals. Often when I present this, people ask me, well, isn't there a solution for this already? We're starting to see green bins in very large cities that can benefit from economies of scale. However, some municipalities struggle to find end uses for the compost. And there's been limited study of the life cycle greenhouse gas impact of all the new trucks that have to be on the road driving around to collect the green bins. Many people in South Glengarry probably backyard compost, and I think that's a great solution. Unfortunately, not everybody is using a backyard composter, and many people that do choose only to compost in the summer when it's nice and warm outside and you don't have to shovel a big path to your composter. And then finally, of course, we want to keep the food waste out of the landfill. Unfortunately, that is where most of it goes today. At Food Cycler, we've proposed a different way to deal with our food waste, which really focuses on making the food waste very easy to deal with and having a great user experience to deal with your food waste. Essentially, we've built a small kitchen appliance about the size of a bread machine, where you put in your food waste, you stick it in the machine, and a couple hours later, you have a nutrient-rich soil amendment that comes out the other end that you can add to your plants, to your garden. You can pelletize it for use in home heating. But the important part is you've now processed it into a sterile state where it can then be diverted from landfill. Or even if it does end up in the landfill, you've reduced the amount of space it's going to take by 90% and reduced the greenhouse gas impact by about 95%. Running the Food Cycler uses less than a kilowatt of power, so a couple cents per cycle, and most people store it in their kitchen, their basement, or perhaps a heated garage. At Food Cycler, we measure our impact in 4 ways, and this is particularly relevant to the work we do with municipalities. In terms of economic impact, we can significantly reduce the costs of waste hauling when compared to traditional solutions, such as sending food waste to an anaerobic facility or sending it through to a transfer station and then to the landfill. I suspect that as the regional waste study comes underway, there'll be a lot of focus on the cost impact of dealing with the waste, but we believe that the best place to deal with waste is either not to create it in the first place or to deal with it directly in the home. So you're looking at a saving of upwards of $100 a ton versus some other types of solutions. The second aspect that's very important to us is the regulations that are coming here in Ontario. There's a number of diversion targets, as I'm sure you know, that are coming into effect into the next few years, many of them focused on reduction and recovery of organic material. And in Ontario, food waste accounts for over 1/3 of our waste stream. So combined with an effective recycling program, yard waste collection, and drop-off programs, it's possible to get over a 60% total diversion rate for your waste based on that typical profile in Ontario. Residents are also very interested in being part of the solution, and many people are more climate aware. Residents want to try new things, they want to be part of the solution, and are often interested in solutions, particularly ones that don't come with municipal tax increases, such as large central compost sites or anaerobic facilities, and looking at programs that allow residents to opt in and choose the solution that's right for them allows tax dollars to be invested very strategically in households that are willing to take the extra effort and participate in creating a net new diversion. And finally, I'll say that you don't need to live in a big city to have access to organics diversion. We believe it should be available to all Canadians at a reasonable cost. I'll recap these two benefits I mentioned before. Again, animals, if you can take the food waste out of the garbage, animals will be finding it a lot less interesting. And you might have the opportunity to reduce your collection frequency if you can take out the food waste, which has a cost saving as well. And the last piece of our solution I think is very important is that we've been trained, I think, to see waste as really this government problem. We create our waste, we put it at the end of our driveway, and a truck comes and picks it up and it really disappears. We don't think twice about it. By dealing with our food waste in the home, it really draws more attention to it. So we start seeing how much waste we're generating and starts making us think about it. By thinking about it, we start changing our habits and behaviors and hopefully start creating less waste in the first place. We call it changing the attitude from not in my backyard to taking the problem and actually dealing with it in our own backyards. Often we get asked what people do with a soil amendment that comes out the other end. It's a great natural fertilizer if you're into gardening or have a yard, perhaps to fertilize your lawn. We've seen it used as pellets for home heating. We've also seen it added to regional waste programs where it might not be feasible to collect green bins every week and take all the raw material to a central site, but pre-processing it with a food cycler, reducing the weight and volume to the point where it's condensed, could allow participation in a regional waste model at a significantly lower cost. We've had a lot of success with these solutions recently. We've had a community in Nelson, British Columbia that is now rolling out Food Cycler to every home in the city of 10,000 people following two very successful pilot programs. In the first one, it was residents who opted in to do a pilot with Food Cycler with the city. And then the second one, the city went out there and found random residents who were given a food cycler and asked to use it. In both plans, the results were overwhelmingly positive, and we saw significant diversion of food waste. Based on those very positive results, staff made the recommendation, which was approved by council, to proceed with a grant application and to move forward with a full rollout of our pre-treatment model. One of the key points really was that the cost to residents would be significantly lower using a food cycler model than a traditional weekly curbside collection. I'll skip through the next slide in the interest of time. We've been fortunate to connect with some great folks at the municipal office, talking about Crystal, who helped us get a food cycler set up in the office, and also a few units to test out in the local schools. We had overall some great feedback from the staff in the municipal office about using it. So we've done a little bit of testing in your community as well. And so thank you very much to Crystal and everybody for trying that out. At the Environment Committee meeting, we proposed a few options of how South Glengarry might be able to test out this concept. I won't go through all the different options, but the one Food Cycler recommends to get started is some kind of pilot program to get some food cyclers out into the community, get residents' feedback on how the program works, and see if there's buy-in for an expanded program. And the cost of this to residents could be reduced through some form of a subsidy. And there's different ways to set up that subsidy model. So as a conclusion, we're looking to be a solution provider focused on the community, environment, and helping municipalities save money. And we thank you very much, Council, for your time, and want to ask if you have any questions.
Okay, thanks very much, Alex, for your presentation. I will open it up to members of council for any comments or questions. Councillor Jaworski.
Sure. Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Alex, for presenting to council. Alex did present to the Environment Committee, and we certainly recommended that he present to council. We thought that this was a concept that definitely South Glengarry should consider. For many reasons. I mean, running the landfill is, it is expensive, particularly when you factor in its full life cycle. And if you can reduce how much you send to your landfill, particularly at its source, that can represent significant cost savings. And really, that's what this is doing, right? We're reducing the volume of waste so that we don't need to transport. And as we all know, our waste collection contracts are several hundred thousands of dollars annually. So if we're able to, in the best case, if we could reduce our curbside pickup for garbage, I mean, that could actually represent really significant savings to the township. And it's a way of sort of distributing that because actually it costs less to reduce it at the source than it does to transport it. So it's, depending on what kind of model the council might decide, there are ways that it can be fairly cost effective. One thing I wanted to mention with these units is that, and because a lot of our, around the township folks have composters and, they do it in their backyard, but not everyone can do that. And in some cases, even myself, I have a fairly good sized property. I don't want to put bones in there, or I don't want to put certain types of food waste that might attract rodents. But in this system, you can actually put chicken bones. You can't put the harder like beef bones, but you can put chicken bones. You can put some other products that you wouldn't put in your residential compost in the backyard. And also, this might be really interesting for our residents, in the subdivisions that have smaller properties where they might not want to have a backyard. Maybe they don't have space, or maybe they don't have, they don't like the aesthetic of having a backyard composter. So I think that's really interesting. And also in our area, so South Dundas, they are doing a pilot also with this system, where if I recall correctly, they're going to pilot it to a smaller number of residents, where they are going to subsidize the cost significantly of it to sort of gauge what is the uptake on the system. So I think the message, through the Environment Committee is really that this is something that we think would be very interesting for residents. And we think also that overall for the township as a whole and for residents, that it could represent a cost savings as well. Oh, and actually, if I could just make one last comment, we're going to be getting the results of the waste composition study recently, where they've done a study of the garbage that's put out in South Glengarry in terms of like what its composition is, and part of those results will be what's the composite, how much food waste is in there. And if we're like other areas, generally that percentage is actually quite high of what actually is, how much percent of that garbage bag that goes out is actually food waste. So again, we'll have some real relevant and recent data to kind of put more figures around this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jaworski. Just a quick question to Mr. Heyman in respect of what Councillor Jaworski just commented on, that South Dundas is trying this as a pilot project. Have they started that yet?
We have not started that yet. Council did vote to provide some funding to the project, and we're in the process of going to the Green Municipal Fund and seeing if they'd like to fund the remainder of the project. We've learned that that's a pretty intensive process relative to the amount of money we're looking for. And that's why we've now recommended that a subsidy model be put in place where the cost is shared between the municipality and the residents. And if there's good data, then I think at that point is when we'd recommend going to someone like the GMF to fund a much larger expansion project.
Okay, thank you. I have a question from Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for your presentation. Reading the data and all what you've provided, it's a pretty thorough. And I would definitely support a pilot project. I think that if we, spent 10,000 out of the dump reserve or the landfill reserve to implement a pilot project, we could definitely see returns on the investment. And I mean, I know we have some years left in our landfills, but I've said before, we have to be proactive, and every ton that we can divert it's a real savings. And I would be in favor of rolling out some sort of a pilot project where residents could opt in and pay a percentage and have the rest subsidized. I guess the only other question I have is how do we measure the diversion? I guess that would be my only question.
Yeah, one of the convenient things about measuring the diversion is you have a reduction rate of about 90% on average. So what we do during the pilot projects is rather than asking people to weigh the material going in, which can be very tricky, and people tend to forget to do that when they're part of these projects, we instead ask them to accumulate all the material coming out. And usually you'll take your entire food waste and you might fill up a 5-gallon bucket in 6 months. So we can weigh everybody's outgoing material and have a very good idea of exactly how much each household has diverted with the project, and then link that back to the municipal investment and tell you exactly how much you've diverted for each dollar that's been invested.
Okay, thank you.
Alex, just a question. Do you have other municipalities that had this out for a little while, or is this just all brand new to everyone?
So the city of Nelson in British Columbia, they ran 2 pilots that started in the beginning of 2020. They're the first municipality in Canada to test this project at scale. And following those results, they're now rolling out a food cycler to every household in the municipality. And they're going to do an 8 times per year curbside collection for the byproduct that's created, and then take that to a regional central compost facility. That presented the lowest cost and the highest greenhouse gas reduction for them. We're also in the process of starting a similar pilot project in Hay River in the Northwest Territories. We have an opt-in model in the township of Sterling Rawdon in Ontario that just kicked off, and there's several others that are kind of in the final stages of getting started up as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. I look forward to kind of hearing what staff's thoughts are on this, and maybe hearing a bit more from the staff that have used it in the office. My only concern is we may be giving just another option to compost to our already diehard composters, maybe within the township, that maybe would. I didn't really consider Councillor Jaworski's fact of maybe it is less appealing to have one in, say, Glen Walter, for example, where it's a little more populated and urbanized. My only concern is I think it'll be hard to track for ourselves if we were to fully implement it, the full use of it, based on, I would expect that it's easier whenever you already have a pickup system like they have in, say, Ottawa, where you're just diverting from that to this as a solution. I know Nelson's been brought up, and can you confirm that they did have a previous pickup already for household waste?
Nelson did not have a previous pickup, but if I may comment on one thing we found in Nelson that was quite interesting, is that households who already backyard composted actually rated the solution lower than those who did not. And so it seemed that many people who already backyard composted were quite happy to continue to do so, while those that were not backyard composting, these were generally more excited because it allowed them to participate and do some diversion without the effort of backyard composting, which previously they had chosen not to do for a number of reasons. And I believe that setting up a good pilot project, it'll be really important to get the data about what people are doing with their waste before, so you can really focus on achieving net new diversion rather than just getting people who already backyard compost to do something different.
Thank you. That was, like I say, that was my main concern, that we were just giving another solution, but I'm willing to be proven wrong. I'm open mind. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McDonnell. Mr. Mills.
Through you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thanks a lot, Alex, for coming this evening to present. It started off with a phone call from me to you, I think, or to Brad Trippo, the CEO. Just a little background that Food Cycle Science started in Cornwall, that it is actually an Eastern Ontario business, and it's gotten bigger and bigger and has moved into Ottawa. Just for clarification too, you mentioned the education piece. So we do have a few demo units that we secured thanks to Food Cycle Science and Alex, that we weren't able to roll them out just yet, Alex, because of there was the lockdown right around that time. And so we're prepared to put a plan together to get them out to a few schools. And to Councillor McDonnell's point about getting it out there and who's going to use it, that there's an opportunity to educate everyone through our school, through our local schools too. So we see it as a positive there.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from members of council? Not seeing none. Alex, do you have any further comments that you would like to share before?
No further comments. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate the time, questions, and comments. Thank you.
All right, thanks very much. So your information will go back to staff, and staff will come back with a report at a later council meeting. So thanks very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move into staff reports, mobile food premises bylaw. Veronica?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This evening, we'll be discussing our third and final reading, hopefully, for the mobile food premise bylaw. With the events following, or the recommendations following the March 1st meeting, I have modified the bylaw to better reflect what council would like to see done. One of those revisions was the special events definition. In here, we had previously mentioned a list of specific special events. The modified bylaw you have with you this evening demonstrates that there is no list. It specifically states any one-time or infrequent event outside of normal programs. Following that, we also have the enforcement, which was a concern regarding proactive. We have altered it to state it's complaint basis. However, we would still be able to enforce if they're operating outside of permitted zones on a frequent basis. So they continuously operate in a non-permitted location. There are two minor changes that were done that you do not see in your package this evening. It was brought up by one of the councillors. Luckily, they caught it. One of the changes is the definition to private property. The end of that sentence says owner. It is supposed to state operator. That's one small change. And the second one would be under section 2.19 that talks about the special events, anything more than less than 4 days. It says notwithstanding section 2.1, I have added now and 2.2, which means that as council had stated during the last meeting, if it's a wedding, for example, on a private property, which is residential, they would be able to operate there, that mobile food premise, that evening without following the zoning restrictions for the bylaw. Other than that, the bylaw hasn't changed any further. I believe this is what council was looking for during the March 1st meeting. If you have any further comments or questions regarding it, I'm open to hear.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Burnett, for your presentation. I'll go to Deputy Mayor Warden and Councillor Jaworski.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank you for your work on this new revised bylaw. I think it really modernizes it, and I think it sets a tone that, yes, we have bylaws, but we also want to work with local residents and businesses to come and operate in our municipality. So thank you for your work. I'm in favor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Warden.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just to, thank you, Ms. Brunet, for the report and for the changes. And I was just hoping if you could also elaborate on the zoning issue. In addition to it being allowed for residential for special events, the other issue too was institutional. So for example, the Williamstown Fair or the high school or the public school, those are institutional zoned lands. So by changing that, the notwithstanding to include, to now include institutional, it would mean that also those properties would also be able to have a mobile food premise as well.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's exactly it, Councillor Jaworski. So if it follows the definition of a special event and it's infrequent, they would definitely be able to operate in that institutional zone. It would only be if this would like continuous events that we would then have to go back and look, okay, does this mobile food premise better suit to have the annual pass and operate in a permitted zone? Or if it falls under the definition of special event, they don't need a permit, they don't need to come to the township, they can operate in any zone, whether it's agricultural, institutional, or residential, one of the permitted spaces, they would be able to go forward with that. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Thank you, Ms. Burnett. I think it's great. I'm all in favor. Thank you for all the work you've done on it.
Thank you, Councillor Lang.
Ms. Brenner, the only question I had some residents questioning just on the fact that our restaurants and local restaurants, I guess, support a lot of our activities, financial benefits and so on in respect of, the Williamstown Fair or whatever the case may happen. But so they're questioning, do you have the right, will you have the right not to allow a chip truck, I guess, a chip stand being in a certain area, even if it's 100 meters away from a local restaurant that operates very similar foods to what the chip stand will be offering? Or is that to your discretion, or is that not in here?
So that would be specific to the bylaw. The moment it meets that 100-meter distance, they're allowed to operate even if it's the same foods being provided. What could happen in that situation, let's say the food truck does get permitted, because it would be based on the bylaw, and the restaurants or the residents or someone would like to petition that or come to council and seek that the license be revoked for any means, or council would like to revise that distance, we would have the opportunity at that point to revise that. I don't believe that there would be any concerns, but if you heard concerns, then maybe there is something to look further into it. I believe the 100-meter distance, based on the research conducted, would be sufficient, but at this point it would be up to council.
Yeah, I don't personally have an issue with 100 meters. I guess the question would be, I thought maybe in here that you would have a discretion in regards to if it's a good fit for that area or not. Just based on if it is, and I'm just going to use one for an example because it's right here in Lancaster and it comes to mind, is Loretta's Chip Stand. If there was 100 meters away from it, which is the same type of an operation, that operates the same type of food, are we going to, I guess, allow that? Or I thought maybe if there was anything in there that you cannot allow it, or I guess if Loretta's Chip Stand would disagree with it, then she'd have to come to council to have the other ones revoked, I guess, their permit. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. With the way the bylaw is currently stated, there is no restrictions based on the types of food being provided, whether or not it's similar to a
local restaurant.
Close restaurant. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I have no issue in regards to the way it's written this evening. If there's any adjustments we can make an amendment to the proposal this evening. So.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor McDonnell and then Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you, Ms. Brunette, for your presentation. I like the changes that have been made. Just a point on what Mayor Prevost was saying. I think the only thing is it couldn't be, it would have to be in the commercial zone to be set up there on a full-time basis or in an open space. But I mean, it's your own property. I guess you have to roll with the punches. Yeah,
no, I agree. And I don't think it's going to affect us that much anyhow. It was just a concern a couple of the residents had that I told them I would question, just to make sure that they do have the right to come to council if that's the case. Deputy Mayor Warden.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to comment that it would going down a slippery slope if we started dictating what types of food. I mean, we have Lancaster, they're restaurants, but they both sell pizza and they're across the street from each other. So I think if you have a superior product, you're going to sell more. And if you don't, you're going to sell less. So thank you.
And both very good pizzas, by the way, Mr. Warden. Okay, so I do have a motion. Any other comments or questions? Not seeing none. I have a motion moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Martin Lang. Be resolved that the staff report 38-2021 be received, and that bylaw 16-2021 being a bylaw to regulate and govern mobile food premises in the township of South Glengarry be read a third and final time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 15th day of March 2021. There's no other further comments. All in favor of the motion? The motion is carried. Thanks very much, Ms. Brennan, for all the work you put into it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Have a good evening. I'll see you shortly.
Thank you. Letter of support proposed grid project. Mrs. Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At our March 1st, 2021 council meeting, so just 2 weeks ago, council received a presentation from Ms. Irene Cameron presenting a new and innovative project called the GeoRegistry Integrated Data Chain, known as GRID. And the purpose of her presentation was to inform council about this new project and possible new software, but also asked for council to provide to her a letter of support and permission to use the township logo. In speaking with Ms. Cameron, I understand she's looking for a letter of support for the concept of the project and the use of the logo so that when she's meeting with other organizations or other municipalities, she can then have her logo on her presentations and inform them that South Glengarry is her home and that they're supportive of this new project. So this staff report is recommending to council to direct administration to prepare a letter of support to be signed by the mayor. And it would specifically say to support the concept and continued development of GRID and also grant the permission of the township logo. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. We've heard the presentation from Mrs. Cameron at our last council meeting. Is there any other further questions or comments? Not seeing none. I do have a motion moved by Lyle Warden, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be resolved that staff report 39-2021 be received and that the council of the township of South Glengarry directs administration to prepare a letter of support to be signed by the mayor to support the concept and continued development of the GeoRegistry Integrated Data Chain project, and furthermore grants permission for the usage of the township of South Glengarry logo in support of the project. All in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you, Mrs. Haley. Number 3 is the sale and purchase of property bylaw and surplus properties list. I believe Mrs. Haley and Ms. Campo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as per direction from council at our last council meeting, we have prepared a staff report and an amending bylaw. The purpose of the bylaw was to afford more flexibility in terms of disposing of the surplus lands. And Ms. Campo is going to speak to the bylaw. But in terms of the staff report, you'll notice that there's 2 components to the staff report. One is in regards to the sale and the purchase of property bylaw, and the other portion relates to the surplus property lists. So in 2014, council in that time declared certain properties to be surplus to the township needs. And we had been working with that list for several years. And then at the November 2nd, 2020 council meeting, council received a list. Unfortunately, it was a different list with just some slight differences. But at that time, it was brought up by council that they may want to remove a property known as the Charlottenburg Managed Forest located off of Caber Road. And I don't believe we received formal direction from council at that time. So we figured this is the perfect time for us to review the list. Also, there was some differences between the two. And in the declared surplus list, it's possible that there's now some lands on that list that we may not want to declare surplus anymore. And there's also lands on the list that have been sold. So we're looking for council to talk to us this evening about the surplus lands and to receive direction on how we move forward in helping you understand what lands we actually have available for sale, what lands have been surplus but we've not been directed to put up for sale, and the possible lands that may need to be removed from the list. I will then turn it over to Ms. Campo to speak to the changes in the bylaw in regards to selling the properties.
Thank you, Mrs. Campo. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. So through you, Mr. Mayor, as Ms. Haley indicated, we have a revised sale and purchase of property bylaw before you this evening. And just it's actually, I'm bringing forward a whole new bylaw. It's not an amendment. We're going to by adopting this bylaw, it will rescind the previous bylaw just because we made enough changes that, I felt it would probably be the best way moving forward instead of just making a couple of amendments. So the main changes on the bylaw are going to be in section 6.1. And those changes are outlined in points 5 to 7 on the staff report. And essentially, it talks about how we are going to advertise these properties. It adds the component of using a real estate agent, as well as gives the CAO or his or her designate a little bit more authority in negotiating offers when a property has been declared surplus already. And, as council knows, we meet every 2, sometimes 3 weeks. And I'm sure our mayor and deputy mayor can attest to the rate at which the real estate market moves at times. So by adding this component to the bylaw, it gives a little bit more flexibility for the CAO to negotiate. And then, of course, council always has the final say in approving a sale or purchase. So, it would come before council for final approval and must be approved by bylaw. But, and for that in-between phase, it gives a little bit more flexibility to the CAO to negotiate on council's behalf. And otherwise, I'd say that's the most significant. Those are the most significant changes. It also reflects, changes some of the titles for administration that's changed over the last few years. And aside from that, I guess if you have any questions, Ms. Haley and I will answer those.
Okay, thank you for the presentation to Mrs. Haley, Mrs. Combo. I do have a question in regards to 6.1.2.2, I guess. It states where the CAO is designate, his or her designate, based on the direction provided by council, should be authorized to negotiate an agreement to purchase, which then will be subject to council's final approval. So even if they have an opportunity to negotiate the offer and the offer gets temporarily accepted by both parties, it's still not accepted until council approves it. So even if administration states to the fact that they come to an agreement, the council can still turn it down. And we can still end up losing that client. So if there was an offer came in tomorrow morning, it was negotiated back and forth, they come to a final number, the buyer still has to wait 3 weeks to get a final approval from council. A lot of times when it comes to land, and the Deputy Mayor Warden can answer this also, is sometimes people want to close land sometimes within 2-3 weeks or very shortly thereafter. So it's still holding up the same process based on exactly what we're doing right now.
If I may, through you, Mr. Mayor, I think that, this added provision, it does give the flexibility for the CAO to do that negotiating. And then I think when it comes down to, it'll all come down to timing. For example, if we're negotiating an offer that's coming up right around, the fitting in with the council schedule, we can bring it to council, but there's always the option to hold a special meeting as well. I know it's not ideal, but I don't think there's a way of getting around, council. I don't know if there's a way of getting around council approving those sales, because we do require a resolution or bylaw to finalize the sale. But I think the intent of adding this component is just to assist the CAO in moving things along so that we're not going back and forth to council with, offers and then going counter offering and coming back and going back. This, opens up the door for the CAO to do that legwork and then bring it to council for that final seal of approval so that we don't have to go back and forth from meeting to meeting.
No, and I agree and I respect that. And that's kind of what I was looking for at the beginning, just the fact that we shouldn't be, because if we're going to negotiate it back from council to council, it could be 6 weeks before it gets put together. The only concern I have is once the negotiations are done between our staff and the purchaser, it's still not a solid agreement because it still has to come back to council. I was hoping or thought maybe once council approved, the the sale prices of the properties. That would kind of be, and having the CEO negotiate to a certain extent in regards to each property. That I didn't realize they had to come back to council. Anyway, I guess there's no way around it. I mean, it gives the opportunity to negotiate, but it's still not a final document until council approves it. So we may still scare some buyers away waiting on a 3-week or 2-week period. But Deputy Mayor Warden and Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I feel this is definitely a step in the right direction. I feel like if we're able to negotiate a conditional sale with the CAO and the realtor, I still say it's leap years ahead of what we had. I agree that it may not be perfect, but I think that it's the best that we can do within the constraints of having to pass a bylaw. So I'm okay with it as it's written. The CAO should be able to negotiate a conditional sale. So at least that it's in principle, it's accepted, the offer is accepted, conditioned upon council's final approval. I feel that let the CAO do the negotiating. That can be done instantaneously, and then the approval will be based on the council meetings and whatnot. And I mean, if it was something that, my thoughts are, if there was something that was extremely urgent, a special council meeting could be convened. If it was a matter of, I'm sure that could be done. Could it not?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Well, like I said a while ago, I'm pleased in regards that our CEO or delegate can certainly negotiate the offer. I just don't like the idea that we have to wait to bring it back to a council meeting. If there's no way around that, then there's no way around that. So I'll go to Councillor McDonnell, then Mr. Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, obviously, I personally wouldn't feel comfortable with them doing a deal without council's approval anyways. But I mean, at the end of the day, there's a lot of confidence in the CAO to go and do this. I have no issue letting them negotiate some of these. But I mean, at the end of the day, people have to realize they are buying from a municipality, and it's not a local landowner. Maybe it takes a few extra weeks to purchase it, but it's not going to ruin their overall plans. So
you'd be surprised, Councillor McDonnell.
Well, maybe they get a better deal if they wait a few weeks, maybe $1,000 or something.
You'd be surprised again. No, and again, I guess what I was looking at the beginning is if we were selling a property for $80,000 and we gave authorization for the CEO or his delegate to negotiate within a $3,000 to $5,000 number under a normal year, certainly not this year, but under a normal year. I think we have the trust in regards to who we have in the position as our CEO or his or her delegate at the time. But I was just hoping that it didn't have to come back to council for final approval. Is that written in stone somewhere, Kelly, or is that what we're assuming, or can we get better clarification on that?
Well, essentially any, for lack of a better word, business that we're asked to carry out on behalf of council. Short answer, I think so. I think it's required. Council, you operate as a unit. You are the head of the corporation, and administration carries out, the direction as provided through council. So I mean, I could double check on that. I can't say I know 100% sure. I can't pinpoint a piece of legislation right now. It may be outlined in the Municipal Act. I'll have to double check, but essentially, if you get down to the basics of the intent of bylaws, it's so that, bylaws are council's direction to administration. And administration doesn't have the authority to enter into agreements without the consent of council, which is through the mayor and clerk most often. So that's why you'll see often on resolutions that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign on behalf of the corporation. So in most, if not all legal dealings, administration doesn't have the authority to act on our own. We have to be authorized through council.
Okay, if you don't mind, if you could just double check that, only based on the fact if once we approve lands as surplus lands and we give the authorization to sell the properties at the value that council has discussed and approved, then to me, we're giving direction for our administration to go ahead and sell these properties on behalf of council.
I can do it.
I just don't see it where it really has to come back to council again to say, we listed the property at 80,000, exactly what you asked us to. We got you 80,000. What is your opinion? Like, I just think we're doubling our work for nothing. But
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think it's not only just to approve the price, but it's the authority to enter into an agreement. So I don't know, I'll just throw out an example of if, say, we had two competing offers for the same property, and they're, you know, fairly equal. At the end of the day, it's council who directs who we're entering into agreements with. But I can certainly look into if there's any other way around it. But certainly from an administrative perspective, I'm always going to recommend that agreements are entered into through bylaw. But that's the clerk in me.
yeah, no, that's fair and that's fine. I certainly want to do this legally, and I certainly don't want to do it in any other way. I'm just trying to be fair to make it as quick as we can for the buyers that are out there, because as Deputy Mayor Warden knows, especially the market we're in now, people don't want to wait. So I'll go to Mr. Mills, Councillor Lang, and then back to Deputy Mayor Warden.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, through you. So we're talking about process here, but there's a couple other things that I think we need to discuss, and staff, you know, we're working on. You could arguably say we need to do a better job, but I mean, we're in a situation where the market's hot and what you bring up. But if you talk about communication, so for example, if there are a number of properties that are going for sale, and we know there's a council meeting in, you know, after this one, it's 3 weeks, there's a delay. You know, when you're looking at process or the strategy involved, that you say they're going to be, we're going to consider offers closer to the council meeting where you might have multiple offers. And then the strategy is when we open it up, we see who the highest, you know, offer is that it can be accepted. Then it gets closer to the time. We also need to let, you know, the buyers and those who are representing them know that we have process, we're communicating it well to them, and this was our strategy. I mean, you know, what Clerk Compo is saying is we have to follow the rules, and those are the rules. So getting, again, I'll repeat it, process, communication, and strategy. We're in a situation now where, yes, the market, likely things will go above what the asking price is. But a year or two from now, who's to say that it'll be difficult to sell, but we still should have the same process in place, whether the market is now or whether the market is what it might be in 2 or 3 years, where something might sit there for a month or two.
Yeah, and again, I'm not arguing to the fact of not following the rules. I just want to know what the rules are. Are we obliged or to bring it, you know, back to council, or can council give the authorization to you negotiate the offer and sell it on behalf of the municipality? That's the only clarification I want. If it has to come back to council, if that's the case in the law that's out there, then it has to come back to council. I'm just trying to make a faster process for the buyers that are out there. Councillor Lang, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I'm okay with the way it's set up here. I like the idea of it coming back to council. Maybe that's the businessman in me. I'd like to have the final say. A lot of us do. But I think we do need to have something that streamlines and negotiate. But don't forget, we've approved the fact that we can have these type of meetings. We can have Zoom meetings. So, you know, you just the required notice for the public notice, and we could have a Zoom meeting that only lasted 15 minutes some night and approve this. You know, it doesn't have to wait, and it doesn't have to be a big deal. You know, just a quick Zoom meeting and approve it, and we're done. So I'm okay with the way it is now.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, I wanted to agree with CEO Mills' idea of, you know, if we know we'll have a 3-week gap coming up, and be strategic. If we have a property that we're going to be going to market, you know, be strategic about it in regards to dates, so that we're not waiting 3 weeks for an approval. The only other comment I had was on the surplus lands map below the Schedule A. The number 13 has already been sold. I just want it. I don't know if it's in that list because it's all the part lots, but number 13 on the map of Lancaster Heights, that has already been sold. In the pink. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Oh, sorry, Councillor Jaworski, then Martin Lang.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I actually don't, I'm fine with how the process is in the bylaw. That's actually not what I wanted to comment on in the staff report. I wanted to address the portion that Ms. Haley addressed. Because, I know that the main purpose of the report was to update the bylaw, but, we've been talking of surplus lands a lot recently. And I've started to feel the need that we really need to look at the surplus land list in a more deliberate way. I know in my tenure, the list that I've seen has not been the same one each time. And, I think it's important that we actually have a chance to go through the correct list and in a deliberate fashion to understand what the strategy is for each piece of property. I'm not talking about the small Lancaster Heights lots. I'm referring to the larger parcels that we have. For example, Richmond Road. I think we need to have a discussion about Richmond Road. I think the Charlottenburg Forest piece, it's still on the surplus land list. I mean, it still could be sold today, and council did kind of give some indication that there was interest in perhaps keeping that. So I think it's important to have that discussion. And also when we with regards to Lancaster Heights, some of the larger pieces, I mean, I don't know if I was the only person on council who's contacted by residents in that area who were taken by surprise that some of those larger lot pieces were going up for sale. And I can sympathize with them in that if I wasn't on council, I would not be aware at all of these properties going up for sale. And even in some cases I am on council, but I wasn't fully aware of the full list. So I think I can see how they have some concerns, and I feel that that there should be some sort of notification, particularly for the large pieces, because if they've lived there for 10, 20 years and always thought that was owned by the township and assumed it was going to be kept, I think they might, I know there's some that have expressed some interest in maybe keeping some of those pieces. So I think that's a discussion we should have. And, because also I think that fits into sort of, we've never completed the tree canopy and natural vegetation policy. And there was expression of interest by the public on maintaining public land that had trees. And some of those properties fit into that, into that, context. And also we recently had that presentation from the South Nation Conservation Authority talking about the natural heritage system linkages. And again, if you're thinking about Lancaster Heights, that's right through one of the main linkages that they showed in the maps. So, with that new information, again, it's about having the right vegetation in the right place. And I found that was a very helpful presentation to sort of consider where does it make sense to preserve trees and where does it make, that's not as important. So this is a discussion that I would like to have. And I mean, Ms. Haley had asked for some direction on going through the surplus lands, and I certainly would support having a more detailed discussion on that, or having a more thorough staff report dealing with those items. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lang.
Yes, Councillor Jaworski's kind of hit quite a bit of what I was just wanting to move on to the second part of this staff report, which was talking about the surplus land and what. So I don't know where I stand on some of these lots, but I definitely would say that all of the small building lots should definitely remain on the market. This is the time to get them sold. If we want to have a discussion on some of the larger ones, I'm okay with that. I don't know if we're going to try to do that tonight, or if you're just wanting us to think about this and get back to staff with our opinions, or if you're going to call a special meeting on this. I'm not sure how you want to do that. But like the small ones, like if you're looking at the Lancaster Heights 1, 2, 23, 20, 21, all of those smaller ones, I say there's no problem. They're a building lot. That's what they're meant for. But there's some parcels in there that are 40, 50 acres, maybe more. Are we going to get a building lot price for a parcel that size, or is somebody looking to put a subdivision in there, or would it be better to do something else with that? It's a discussion I guess we have to have.
Well, to be honest, I think in regards to the properties in Lancaster Heights, you probably want to have a discussion in regards to those tonight because those properties were already authorized to sell. So if you're pulling any out, I would recommend that you pull them out this evening until further notice. Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, I was just going to comment that just on the points that Councillor Jaworski and Councillor Lang made. I was under the impression we'd already decided to sell those, and that's what we had hired a real estate agent, or I guess recruited a real estate agent to do for us, was to price them accurately to the market and to their highest potential. I have no issue with what we've already declared surplus lands and we want to sell. We want to have a discussion. I would agree tonight's the time to have it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from members of council? I will ask the question, is there properties in Lancaster Heights that somebody wants to see pulled out of the real estate market that's on the market or was on the market and pulled off the market and going back on the market? Councillor Jaworski.
Well, to continue on the fact that I had residents reach out to me from that area saying that they would like to have a chance to approach council about, what they would like to be done with those properties. I mean, I have no issue with the smaller lots. I think that was very clear. But for some of the bigger lots that I've learned more about since we put them on the surplus land, we had very limited information when we had the last discussion on what was the potential. Some of those lands cannot be subdivided based on, they can be only sold as one single building lot, some of those very large parcels. And, I see that there's benefit there for that community to have that large parcel for the community rather than selling it off as one building lot in terms of value to the township. So I would like to take off the larger pieces. I mean, the one, I think it's 1116, and maybe the other very large one. Those are two that I think are high priority to remove, but I'm very comfortable with the small ones. It's the larger ones that I think we need to have a proper discussion around.
Okay, thank you. So if you're going to have further discussion in regards to removing any of those properties in Lancaster Heights, I'm going to declare a conflict of interest, as those properties are listed with the real estate agent in my office and a company that I'm part owner of. So I'll ask Deputy Mayor Warden to take this portion of the meeting.
Okay, you're stepping away, Deputy Mr. Mayor?
I will declare a conflict of interest on this item, just to the fact that if you're talking about pulling, and I mean, I can argue to the fact you should be leave them there for other reasons. So I will declare, and I will step away from this part of the meeting.
Okay, Councillor McDonnell, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just I know I've got it might be helpful maybe for the public to see the map. I know I have it here in front of me out of the staff report, but maybe just ideal if we put it up or we kind of take a minute to look at it. What everyone else thinks.
I have it up here. I'm gonna see if
I'd just like some clarification on. I know Councillor Jaworski mentioned 1612, but then it says 16 and 12 sold to merge.
Can you guys see the map that's on my screen?
Yep.
So it's Chio Warehouse. It's a software program that we use as realtors. So the township property, this one here is listed currently, I believe, for $89,000 or $99,000 right here. And then there's various lots throughout. There's this lot. These three lots here are listed or are for sale. They're surplus. And this larger parcel here and this larger parcel here. So is there any specific lot? So is this the lot that wants that we want to keep?
That's one of them, in my opinion. And Mayor, perhaps Ms. Haley could speak to, am I correct that one cannot be, that one is currently like a single building lot, correct? It can't be subdivided?
I'm just going to check my notes on that. One moment, please, if you don't mind.
And then this was the other lot that is in the process of being, all these small little pins are in the process of being erased and one large lot would then therefore be created. Is that plan of subdivision was deregistered last term, and I believe the solicitor for the municipality has started to erase all those lines.
Well, I can update you on some of that information. So to answer your question, Councillor Jaworski, in terms of that parcel of property that you're referring to, that's on our list as lots number 12 and 16, it would have inadequate public road frontage to do a severance. So your best use under the current policies would be a single detached dwelling, maybe hobby farm, because it is in the rural zone. If a developer came along and wanted to do a draft plan of subdivision, they could certainly do that, because where the deputy mayor's mouse is, if you can go to that little small green parcel right there, that's the continuation of the road allowance. So anybody could come in and propose a road in that location, but they'd be going through a plan of subdivision process as opposed to a severance. And in regards to the other parcel that you just referenced, Deputy Mayor Warden, in terms of the former draft plan approved, or excuse me, registered subdivision, I should say, in that location there, all the pins have been merged. Our lawyer has since completed the work, and it's now one parcel of property, as well as the parcel of property. If you can move your mouse just to the left, right in there, there was at one point, I believe, 5 different parcels in that location, and they too have since been merged. So looking at the list, if you look at the map that's been provided to you in your council package with the pink parcels, I think there's some concerns that need to be brought forward to council, such as lot number 6 and lot number 7. They're completely landlocked parcels, so we have to be careful if we choose to sell them, because we're then turning around and letting an individual know that there's possibly nothing they can do with those parcels of property because they have no public road frontage. So, to me,
Sorry, yeah, go ahead. My apologies.
No, it's fine. But to me, we have to be careful on how we're marketing those properties and how we're listing those properties. And that's why I think it's maybe important for us to come back outside of the individual building lots that seems to be clear to council that they should be sold. For examples 1, 2, 21, 20, we can look at those to see if they're possible as well, because of the landlocked land. And we have a couple of them since sold, as you mentioned, Deputy Mayor Warden. Lot 13, I believe, was sold in 2019.
The last summer.
2020. Okay, I apologize. So I think it's important to update this list so we know exactly what we have and what issues or encumbrances are coming out of each parcel of property, if any. And then we can talk about what the development potential is for each parcel.
Okay. I've never, that's the first time I've shared my screen. So please give me a second. There we go. Okay. So my personal opinion is these lots were declared surplus a long time ago, and I am not in favor of reversing that decision. I feel that we need to get them on the market, and there is a beautiful little park here, Bernie McDonnell Park, that could potentially stand some investment with the proceeds, should council choose to do that. I don't feel that in this area that's my opinion. So I'll go to Sam. I'll go to Tim first, and then I'll go back to you.
Just for point of order, and I'll look to the clerk here. So we're talking about a number of details that are not related to approval of the general sale bylaw. So it's two separate. It's two separate things.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I think we are starting to get a little bit into the weeds, just in relation to the intent of the resolution with the report. So the resolution that goes along with this report is to approve the general sale and purchase of property bylaw. And I think the intent with Ms. Haley's piece tonight was just to let council know that we're seeking some general feedback on the list, but we don't have a resolution before council tonight, or like we'd have to put something out, I guess, in a report, even for the April 6th meetings, that gives a little bit more notice to the public in terms of, approving a new list of properties.
Right, but excuse me, but if council chooses to stay the course, which we were kind of debating back and forth, then we are on subject, and those lots were already declared surplus to the needs, and they're already on a list that exists, correct?
Correct. However, just know that the resolution as it's currently written, you could certainly provide direction to staff, but if we're going to be amending that list in an official capacity and approving it, which I think we should, given the confusion over the last 6 to 7 years and different versions, we should have an officially approved bylaw with that listing as an appendix. However, we don't have that prepared tonight. We'll have to come back with something, but just I guess to guide the conversation and back to the general intent of the report tonight is more so on the bylaw piece and looking to generate some conversation on that listing.
Okay, so they're two totally separate issues. So I feel like then staff should come back. I feel we have no choice but to defer any amendment of that list, or can a new bylaw be created to amend it to this evening?
Well, the property listing is not an appendix to the sale and purchase of property bylaw. They're two separate documents. So you can pass the sale and purchase of property bylaw tonight. We can come back with a surplus property listing to be approved through bylaw. And then any changes to that listing will come through an amendment to the bylaw, and it'll be officially recorded so that it's not any one employee making changes here or there, but they would stand as two separate bylaws. So tonight, what you have before you that you can enact tonight is the general sale and purchase of property bylaw. And then what we can bring back to council for a future meeting in the near future is a separate bylaw adopting the surplus property list.
I think that I will ask questions of the members. I think that we should do that. I think that makes a sensible approach to it. Have that discussion and add and subtract what council feels they want to. And let's deal with this bylaw as presented, the first half of it. So is there any other questions or discussion of the members? Councillor McDonnell?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I have no issue with that. The only, as I say, the only concern I do have is, like we said, we're looking at another 3 weeks before our next council meeting. So if we truly do plan on making changes to this, yeah, let's have a meeting on it, or let's have a discussion on it. But like I say, as of right now, my mind's made up that I think we left it all as is. I know there was comment about trails that have been made. I did appreciate the comment you made about Bernie McDonnell Park. I think it's probably one of the best parks in the township. Maybe I'm biased, but I think it is. It's got a pond, kids playing hockey on it. It's pretty hard to go wrong with something like that in the far corner of the township. So,
Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through Mr. Deputy Mayor. Like I said, I don't have an issue with how the bylaw is currently worded in terms of moving forward on that piece, but I do very strongly believe that we need to talk about the surplus lands. And, our mayor made a comment earlier saying that, these properties have already been, I don't know what the right term is about how they've been authorized for sale. I mean, if I go back to the RFP that we issued back in November, Charlottenburg Forest was also still on that list appended to that staff report. So, and my sense was that there was, not everyone was on board for selling that. So I feel like it's not as cut and dry as, oh yeah, everything's ready to go to be sold. So that was on that list. So I would like to I would like to have a discussion on that specifically. but I'm fine with the bylaw that we've already discussed as it stands.
Okay, so that being said, I don't have what's, and I'm
Oh,
not sure what
that's
I'm
right.
supposed to be reading. Kelly,
So
the page.
through you, Deputy Mayor Warden, if you just go to page, let me just find the page on the agenda. Sorry, bear with me a second here.
That's okay.
So if you go to page
I think it's page
50 of your agenda,
Mhm.
oh,
Yep.
sorry, the resolution for whatever reason didn't transfer in the agenda
Ms.
package.
Combo, would you mind if I interrupt for a second? Only because we had two components to the resolution in the staff report I've just been able to pull up on my computer. The first resolution spoke to the bylaw. The second resolution that I drafted said, be it further resolved that Council of the Township of South Glengarry reviews the declared surplus list and provides direction to administration to update the list if deemed necessary. And that's what gave us the authority to speak about those two topics independently. But I noticed in both on the website as well as in our council downloads or sorry, whatever the name of the program is, the resolution is incomplete. So I assumed that it was there for council in two parts.
Yeah, something happened with
Yeah, so I think we just had a technical error, but there was two components to, and then if council didn't like that second component and wanted to continue with the approved list in 2014, that was fine. That's council's choice to direct us accordingly. It could also be something as simple as review the list and we remove what's been sold just so that we have a working list that's up to date. I think there's just been some confusion with which properties are actually available or not. So I didn't mean to add any confusion, but I just thought that would be helpful to explain the two components to the resolution.
Okay, so we weren't really out of bounds then in the discussion we
We
had.
weren't out of bounds as a point of order, in my opinion, no, because
Okay.
that's how it was drafted.
Okay. So at this point, I believe there's consensus around the table for the first part of that resolution as it was drafted. Do we want to literally go through one lot at a time and say, do a majority, and then we can, if there's no alterations, we can pass it and the list remains, the properties go on the market, or subject to, or then it would be subject to an amendment? I'm looking to staff for direction.
So if I can speak to that, if you don't mind, Mr. Deputy Mayor, really to me, it was clear that council wanted the lands to be sold in Lancaster Heights. However, looking at the staff report in November, as much as the staff report implied that, the resolution didn't state that. The resolution gave the permission to hire the real estate agent. So
I remember that discussion very clearly,
yes.
And it was myself that said, why don't we make it for all surplus lands? But in my opinion, we haven't declared those other lands surplus. We've only declared these lands in North Lancaster Heights, if I am correct.
However, at that time, that 2014 bylaw was not shared with council to know exactly what was declared or what wasn't declared. And that's why we included that list for you this evening, because that has to be the official list. Even though we know there's things on there or lots that have been sold, it is truly the official list because no other list was brought forward since then. In that list, if council's happy with what's on there in terms of the Lancaster Heights properties, we can continue to proceed as planned. If they're not happy, that means we have to amend that bylaw and change that list. So we either receive direction from council to do so, or we proceed accordingly as per what's been approved. And if council says to us, only put the lots up for sale in Lancaster Heights, then we get that direction.
Okay, so I believe that council's intent on this subject was to list all of the lots in Lancaster Heights. That was very clearly, there was a clearly defined list, and council clearly supported that. I think where the confusion comes in is those other there's 3 other lots listed, or 4 other lots listed on that list that we have not had a further wholesome discussion. So does that make sense to the members present? Martin?
That was my understanding, but if we want to review Lancaster Heights again and move from there, I have no issue doing that tonight, if we can.
I think at the time we were fairly certain at the time that Lancaster Heights was surplus. I know there was discussion on the other ones. It's, I guess it wasn't changed formally. There were some that, one on Cable Road, I thought we had come to the conclusion that we didn't want that one to go, but maybe it wasn't officially put on into a bylaw. But I'm not against reviewing Lancaster Heights too. I mean, I'm up for the discussion. I mean, the lots, I guess, have all been valued at this time. So maybe we need to look at the values and say, do we find that, is it worth more to keep that to a township property or let it go at that price? I did also get that letter from residents in the area wanting to keep some of it for trails and so forth. I'm listening to them, but at the same time, if 4 or 5 residents got together, and it wouldn't be a big deal for them to buy it, and then they'd have be able to do what they want with it. Everybody wants to have control over the property beside them without having to pay for it, but can't always work that way. Sometimes you have to put your money out, and then you do have control. So I'm not saying that we need to keep them for sure, but I think it wouldn't hurt to have that discussion. But I hate to slow this up. I mean, the real estate market's good right now, and we're slowing this down for another month or two, but.
Okay, so Ms. Campo, if we right now went line by line on the list in the Schedule A, and council decided by majority if we wanted to list all the lots and then not list certain lots, does that give formal direction? And can that be written in a bylaw and passed and approved this evening?
You can provide the direction, certainly. No, a bylaw could not be passed this evening. I'd have to prepare. I can't write a bylaw. I'm good, but not that good.
So could I paraphrase it again? So if we decided that we wanted to list, let's say we have the discussion in regards to Lancaster Heights, we could proceed with that, and then staff to come back with council at a later date with the remaining 4 lots listed. Does that make sense? I'm just trying to speed it up and give. I feel that we should be making this decision tonight and getting it out there. Like Councillor Lang said, the market is active, and I feel we have a duty. So,
sorry, through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The Lancaster Heights properties are already declared surplus, and council this evening gives general, direction and consensus that they want those properties to remain surplus. Council or administration already has the authority to, enter into, negotiations on those properties. So certainly, if council says tonight, you want those properties to remain surplus, then they've already been declared. So, and if you want us to come back with a report on the other properties and provide more direction at a subsequent meeting, then we can certainly do that. So if your general consensus tonight is that you'd like those properties to remain as is, well, we already have the authority to negotiate and sell those lands. So yes, that's doable tonight.
Okay, so I'm going to ask each member if they want to proceed as we've had them declared to move forward, or you want to go through the list one by one right now, and if there's a majority of council members that wish a specific property be removed, then we can deal with it at that time. I feel like that's the fairest way. I'll start to my left, Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'm fine with Lancaster Heights up being surplus.
Okay, thank you.
Reasonable enough that if residents want something else there, they can buy it and do it.
Thank you. Councillor McDonnell.
I'm fine with declaring Lancaster Heights surplus.
Councillor Jaworski.
There's a large number of the larger pieces and the landlocked ones as well that Ms. Haley has mentioned that I think we need to discuss. I think we have a duty of care as the township when we're selling those properties to ensure that people understand what they're buying. Because certainly if there's a screw up, they have much higher expectations of us than they might have of a regular private seller. So I think we need to have some discussions about those pieces as well. But definitely the two larger pieces. So I guess is it 16? I'm not sure of the number in the naming conventions anymore on which piece is which, but the larger piece on the west and the larger piece on the east, and then the ones that are landlocked.
Okay.
But just me, so.
That's fine. Thank you very much. I am in favor as proceeding as was declared at a previous meeting. We have hired the services of a realtor who will be able to direct clients. Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I mean, I'm in no rush at this point. I mean, if Councillor Jaworski wants to state her case on those larger parcels, I mean, now's the time. We might just, if you're going to change our mind, tonight's the night.
You want me to go? Okay. I can.
I mean, you might. I mean, what do we have to lose at this?
Well, I suppose time, but there's no point. If people are their mind made up, I mean, certainly, like I said, in terms of the residents who live there, most of them were not aware of what was for sale and what was for not. I mean, some of the smaller building lots, yes, they get that those have always been for sale, but from some of the larger lots, people were not aware. I myself would not have been aware if I was not on council. So I sympathize that some of those folks would like to be able to state their case in terms of having more parkland. The Bernie McDonnell Park is a nice park, but the majority of that piece of property is the pond. And yes, you can skate out in the winter. And for those who like watching the geese or skipping stones, that's very nice. But there is value to having a forested park, to having the natural vegetation space. And, I think that they should have a chance to be able to make that case on that. I do think in terms of the value to the township, I mean, if those are sold as just one big building lot at let's say $90,000, I think forested pieces of land have more value to, I mean, from an environmental perspective and from a social capital perspective for the folks that live there. And I could understand why they would like have access to it. I mean, there are some nice wooded parcels in other parts of the township, like Summerstown Trails, the Glen Walter Park, Regional Park, that folks have access to. And I see that similar to this. Also, in terms of the natural heritage linkage, I mean, we did, when we were having the discussion on the tree canopy policy, I think there was a pretty clear message that folks, they understand about not, maybe we're not regulating what people do with trees on private property, but there was a pretty strong sentiment about let's have some passion for vegetation on public property. And this is public property. And in terms of, if we're talking Lancaster Heights specifically, the location of that is specifically through that natural heritage linkage system that we've been recently presented in terms of, joining up I'm sorry, I forget the name of that forest with then the forest that's on the Quebec side. So it has a lot of value for biodiversity. So I think it has some value there to be considered. So that's my piece.
Thank you
on those.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I guess my stance on it is I know lots 16 and 12 were the ones that council was contacted about as having potential for a trail through it. I like Councillor Lang's comment as, if a few of the neighbors want to get together, purchase it together, there's a great opportunity for them in the future. I personally, I don't know any other small community that's tight knit like that has more than one good sized park. Personally, I mean, North Glengarry trails aren't far, neither Summerstown. There's some great options in Quebec. I've got to drive to them. I just can't justify losing out on the potential for income that could go into our existing park when it's all for the benefit of the few. again, those larger parcels, I know the comment is to the heritage tree cover. I mean, I can't imagine somebody's going to go in there, and it's none of my business if they do, but if they decided to put a building lot there and build a, very nice home up there, that they are going to clear cut every tree. I mean, something tells me they're probably going to leave a few there, and they might not scare too many kids away that want to go walking through the bush that's existing or left there. I just think there's more potential for the community there themselves to have some more neighbors, some more tax base. And I mean, the revenues from that, we can agree that maybe the revenues from that, from the sale of some of those lands go back into the existing park, and maybe we can throw up a swing set or two and we can work from there with the people that are up there and see if there's a demand for something like that. But personally, that my thought process is develop more of it and maybe see some more maybe young kids running around and get the benefit of that, as opposed to keeping a few empty lots. That, to me, I don't see the benefit.
Okay, thank you very much. I feel that we have, for the sake of time, I would like to take a final vote and give staff direction in regards to the surplus lots in Lancaster Heights. Are we status quo on that? Councillor Lang?
Yes.
Councillor McDonnell?
Yes.
Councillor Jaworski?
Yes, but I do appreciate the opportunity to make a case. Thank you.
I appreciate that, and I'm a yes. So staff has direction in that regard. We don't have to pass a bylaw because it's already been passed. Now, as for the staff report that's in front of us, I have no wording to read formally. So if you would be so kind, Ms. Campo, to read the resolution before us, Mayor Prevost.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Warden. I think I could read the motion just based on that. It's not a conflict in regards to that part of the presentation. Is that correct, Ms. Campo?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just for your own sake, I think it's probably best, because you did declare on a portion of the report and discussion. It's likely in your best interest for to not vote on it. And I should read the resolution because the one that you have in front of you, Mr. Mayor, is not correct. I just, as we were talking, I figured out where I had a bit of an administrative hiccup. So I do have the correct resolution in front of me, which the one that you have in front of you is missing that listing component that Ms. Haley touched on. So I'll read the resolution.
Touching votes with the same motion, that's fine.
Yeah, so I'll read that resolution, Deputy Mayor Warden, and then you can call for the votes of council.
Okay, thank you.
So be it resolved that staff report 40/2021 be received, and that bylaw 21/2021, being a bylaw for the sale and purchase of property for the Township of South Glengarry, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed this 15th day of March 2021. And furthermore, that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry reviews the declared surplus list and provides direction to administration to update the list as deemed necessary.
Okay, so was it moved by somebody and seconded?
My apologies.
Okay.
Moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor McDonnell.
Wonderful. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, the motion was carried, and thank you very much for the heartful discussion. Back to you, Mayor Prevost.
Can I just have a point of order there?
Sure.
So we updated the list, but just according to Lancaster Heights. With a surplus list, I still think we need to look that over in reference to any other parcels. Only Lancaster Heights has been
correct
done over there. So just depending on how that was worded, I don't want them to think they can just sell any of the other ones.
No, and I think that was the general discussion was Lancaster Heights only in regards to those other four at the bottom of that list.
Yeah.
We're not ready to, we haven't discussed them at all.
Okay.
correct, Mrs. Campo?
Yes, through you, Deputy Mayor Warden. So the way the resolution is worded is that council is to provide direction to administration. So I think we've received that tonight, so we know our marching orders.
And could I, if I may, could staff come back to council at a later date with these other 4 properties to have the rest of that discussion, to say if council wants them to be deemed surplus or not? I think any other lots left over that are surplus, I feel like we, if staff could come back to us in the near enough future to have that discussion, and then we'll know across the board.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, 100% for sure.
Thank you. Sorry for the long-windedness. Back to you, Frank.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Warden, for taking that portion of the meeting. So now we'll move on to number 4, which is the Peanut Line Master Plan. I will hand that over to Mrs. Haley and Chief Robertson, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to start, if you don't
My
mind.
apologies, go ahead.
Thank you. So what you have before you, and I'm going to turn over to Mr. Robertson in one, was the Peanut Line Master Plan. I've been here just over a year, and I've heard from constituents, staff, council, about what a jewel that the Peanut Line is and the opportunities we have. What's missing though is a plan for it. We've owned the Peanut Line for 12 years, I guess. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Robertson to discuss an initial plan of attack that staff is recommending. I don't want to steal your thunder, Mr. Robertson. However, the pandemic has brought to light a number of things where we see the outdoors differently. And the Peanut Line is something that we certainly could capitalize on as a municipality and as an area, as a destination, as part of being an area of destination.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mills, and thank you, Council, for giving us the opportunity to present this item. So in 2009, the Township of South Glengarry purchased the right-of-way from the Canadian Pacific Railway, better known as the Peanut Line. The former rail bed and right-of-way runs from our western boundary at Boundary Road all the way to the Quebec border in our east. At the time of acquisition, it was the intent of the township to develop a master plan to determine the highest and best use of this space and create multi-purpose and compatible recreation opportunities. As a recreational trail, it's recognized that some of the Peanut Line is no longer accessible as a true recreational trail, or at least it's been limited its ability as a true recreational trail. So because it's been modified or altered by abutting property owners. Administration recognizes that the increased maintenance is required, and we should continue to permit recreational activities. Before we invest resources and funds, we feel that it's important to receive and understand all community opinions on this item. So. As CAO Mills had mentioned, the effects of COVID-19 have highlighted the need for more passive public outdoor spaces, such as walking, running, skiing, items such as that. It's also a very active space for snowmobiling and all-terrain vehicles in different seasons. So we've never formally prepared a master plan to explore all options for the space, options such as the recreational points, but we've also had numerous community groups in the past reach out to us for different opportunities to use the trail as it was. The Great Raisin River Foot Race, as an example, comes to mind. We have historically had an agreement with the Glendalers ATV Club for use of that trail, and a number of snowmobile enthusiasts, do use, especially on the eastern portion. So the purpose of this plan would be to develop goals and objectives for the usage and maintenance of the Peanut Line. The development of the master plan will include the requirement for a public consultation, as well as consulting with budding property owners. It's important to learn and understand the community's expectations and wishes for this space so council can make an informed decision and provide direction on the future of this trail. The 2021 budget includes $60,000 for a recreational master plan, which speaks to the whole of the municipality. It'll review the needs for programming and passive space in all our recreational locations. It'll touch on the importance of the Peanut Line and its linkages to other trails and road networks. But the development and the highest and best use of the Peanut Line will not be the focus of the Recreation Master Plan. Specifically, administration sees the importance of public consultation focusing entirely on the Peanut Line, and is therefore seeking council's input on this matter to have it as a separate focused discussion. It's the intent of administration through this request to issue a request for proposal in April of this year to create a recreation master plan. We wish to discuss the option with council about simultaneously issuing an RFP for the development of an additional Peanut Line master plan, which would be subject to an increase in the 2021 budget for that item. It's also possible to include a full master plan requirement for the Peanut Line within the RFP of the Recreation Master Plan. That would be another option. So as far as costs, it's unclear exactly how much the Peanut Line Master Plan will cost. Based on the research done by staff of other similar studies, it's anticipated that the study could cost as much as $40,000. So to summarize, the following options are before council tonight. A, to direct administration to prepare an RFP for the development of a Peanut Line master plan subject to a budget increase of $40,000. So that would be specific to the Peanut Line. Or B, direct administration to include a Peanut Line master plan within the overall recreation master plan and to increase the budget by $40,000. Or C, do not prepare a master plan for the Peanut Line and continue to permit the current usage. So administration recommends option A, to develop a Peanut Line master plan separate from the, as a separate focus from the Recreation Master Plan. This will result in an independent document focused entirely on the Peanut Line, including the goals and objectives of the usage and maintenance of the Peanut Line. So with that, I'll open up to questions of council. I want to thank Joanne Haley. Ms. Haley brought her wide depth of knowledge on this file in her role and historically. So she's been offered a lot of information on this to get us to where we're at. So I think it's best that we're both open to any of your questions. So.
Okay, thank you for your report, Chief Robertson. I will go to questions from members of council. I will go to Councillor Lang and then Councillor McInell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. And thanks, Mr. Robertson, for bringing this. And I'd like to also thank Mrs. Haley and Mr. Mills, because the rest of the staff that brought this, and thank staff for their patience with me today, because I spent quite a bit of time on the phone with them and took up part of their day. But I am a strong proponent of the Peanut Line. I use it, especially in the wintertime for snowmobiling, but I see the people, especially on the western end, using it often. And I'm seeing the change that's coming with the new reality that we're in with COVID, and the number of people that want to get outside, that maybe they have more time because they're working from home. I'm not sure what all it is, but like the Summerstown trails, there's times they're parked on the road. They don't even fit in the parking lot. So people are wanting to get out there and they're wanting to use these things. Now, as far as my thoughts about this study, I've been back and forth, and I appreciate staff being patient with me and you know, showing me their point of view, because when I started, I was just 100%. This is ridiculous. I'm going to spend $40,000, and they're going to tell me what I already know, is that we have the potential to have a great trail here if we would just look after it. And I think that still basically is true, but I do see the point of having, we do have to have some dialogue. We do have to have some study. We have to get the public involved. There's some hard decisions to be made, especially on the eastern portion, because we have a lot of farmers that are using that land, and the township owns that land, and the general public would like to use it more, I believe. And I think we're going to have these conversations. I just don't think we're ready to do this yet. I think we need, as a council, we need to know a general direction where we want to go with this. I don't think we've had the discussion to decide where we want to go yet. I think there has to be public meetings on this, and I don't mean over Zoom. I think we have to be able to get people in a room, and I don't think we're ready for that at this point either. So I'm not looking to kill this motion, but I would like to defer this motion. I think at this point there are plenty of things we can do on the peanut line. We know a lot of the things that we need to do some brushing on the peanut line, because we can't get down there with machinery to regrade the surface of it. There's so many big potholes, especially on the part that's being used a lot, the western part, say from Williamstown to Boundary. So there's lots of places we can spend some money on the peanut line before we put $40,000 into a study. And I would like to see, when this study happens, I think we need to know where we want to go. And I think we need to be able to get people into a room and have public input and get both sides of the story. I want to hear the farm side of the story. I'm sure some of these farmers, you know, even though it's likely been 100 years, but this rail line, you know, went through maybe against that farm's will, and they likely think, you know, this not being used as a rail line anymore, should be turned back. But I think we're past those days. I think we're at the point now where, you know, this is a big plus for this community, and it could be a great thing. And I think we're going to have to get people together and get talking about it. But I'm not ready to spend $40,000 yet. I'd rather see that go into brushing and gravel, and then revisit it at some point. Maybe, you know, then we can do it properly, put it into a budget, and you know, maybe for next year or maybe for this fall. That's up to staff to make the best decision there. But that's my thoughts on it. I've spent a lot of time on it today, thinking about it and trying to come up with what we should do. I just don't want to spend $40,000. They come back with a study that I could have written myself and say, yeah, you have a great asset here. You know, fix it up. We need to, it's got to be bigger and deeper than that. That's what I'm thinking at the moment. I'm curious what everybody else is thinking.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lang. I'll move to Councillor McAnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I agree a lot with Councillor Lang. I have my opinions, and I've been very vocal about them when it comes to the peanut line. I agree. I think $40,000 would go a long way on the west end of the peanut line, as opposed to into a study. I don't say we don't eventually need one, but I think there's a lot of work we have to do before we're even ready to have somebody come in and tell us what our next steps are, because I think we're so far from it. It's we have a lot of work to do, put it that way. I know I grew up on the east end of the peanut line. It runs through my family farm, and I know I grew up using it and enjoying it, but it definitely needs some work. I know we always give the farmers on the east end a hard time saying they're encroaching on it, but at the same time, we have an asset we've owned for close to 10 years, I think, and we've never done anything with it or ever maintained it. I know the first time I've ever seen a piece of township equipment on it was just this fall, and that we spent a long time looking out at the peanut line. So we're up on the hill. We've got a good eye shot of it. I don't think I'm ready to spend it on a plan, because I agree with Councillor Lang. They're going to come back and say, you've got a good asset, but you've got a lot of work to do, which we already know that. Let's get some work done before we go and spend this kind of money just looking for an engineer's report pretty well.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I 100% disagree. I think that the reason nothing has been done with the peanut line since 2009 is because council has not invested in a master plan. We have we have asset management plans for our roads. We're doing another one this year to update the study. I feel like this is the start to putting the plan in place. Yes, it's $40,000, but I feel like if we don't do it, I feel like we're not going to ever get off the ground. And I feel like having a third party come in to do it, I feel it's a level playing field. There's different people that have different things that they would like to see done with it. I think if we hire an outside party, I mean, you take staff, for example, there's different members of staff that potentially would have a bias towards one portion to the peanut line or not. I think for me, I think this is, we need to do this to get the ball rolling. And then once we have the report, then council can start saying, okay, this is where we should prioritize and make a plan. But I wholeheartedly feel that this is a step in the right direction to actually achieving something with the peanut line. I mean, it's 12 years now that we've had it, and pretty well, other than all the mounds being removed in certain sections of it, nothing else has been done. So I would like hopefully get this passed, and let's get a third party review, and then we can review that document and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councilor Jaworski.
I have a question, if I could then follow it with a comment. In terms of the cost of this master plan for the peanut line, the number hit me as being quite high. And I would like to know, before I make my comment, sort of like, what's the degree of confidence that staff has that that's really the number that we would need? It just, like I said, it seems rather high considering it's such a defined scope project.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, might I pass this on to Ms. Haley, just because she can probably speak best to both the cost, but also the vision towards community consultation and the degree that we're hoping to do with the outreach. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. In doing the research to prepare for this staff report, there are a lot of examples out there in terms of different trail master plans. A lot of the examples that you'll find are usually done at a county-wide level, linking trails in different communities. And those master plans are really costly because you're looking at a much bigger area and the economic development aspects of it. In looking at more of a focused plan, it adds up very quickly when you're dealing with a consultant, because a lot of weight needs to be going into the public consultation component of it. And the public consultation would not only be different ways of holding public meetings, and I understand that we're in COVID, but with summer months coming and vaccines coming, maybe we have the ability to hold different types of meetings or styles of meetings outside. And not only are we doing, in my opinion, a general public meeting or a few of them to understand what the community would like to see the peanut line be used for, a multi-purpose trail, there's a lot of consultation that has to occur with the individual property owners, because it's the individual property owners abutting this peanut line that are directly impacted. And whether they're impacted in a positive way or a negative way, or we have some property owners that we know have altered the peanut line thinking it's their right to use it because it's public space, that's where a lot of time is going to have to be invested. And that time is going to have to be invested both from a staff's perspective, as well as having that independent third-party person with no perceived vision of that plan. Then they can offer different options that they could see as being possible for that location. In getting back to the $40,000, I only based it on the research I did. I could be on the high side. It could be $35,000. Consultants it can add up. So I don't think I'm in an unreasonable amount. Potentially it could be lower, but with direction of council, if you choose to defer it, that's fine. If you choose to proceed, we can put a request for proposal out there with not a defined budget and ask them to come up with a plan. And then we evaluate those proposals based on what are they going to do for us for this public consultation. So it's really an educated guess in terms of speaking with different communities and consultants.
So, thank
Go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
So thank you very much for that information. Because I mean, I definitely feel that one of the reasons we've never done anything with the peanut line is because we've not had a plan. And as long as we don't have a plan, the encroachment will continue, and then it makes the future more and more difficult, or it makes it more and more, depending on your perspective, it makes it perhaps more defined. And so I think now is the best time to try and start nailing, like coming up with, well, what would it really mean if we really develop that as a plan in terms of what is the cost, what would be the pitfalls, the potential negatives and the potential positives for budding property owners, to really get a good sense of that and be clear on that. I think we do need to start getting a plan. I mean, the 40,000 was a bit high from my perspective, but I think it was Councillor McDonnell who said, you could probably use that money to improve the western side quite do some good work there. But then again, we're not getting any closer to really understanding what the eastern side, what is the potential there. So I think we do need to have a plan. I like that idea of perhaps having more of an open-ended RFP to see what people, would say, like what they could do with a, set defined, within a budget that they define, what they might be able to do for us, and get us, at least have some more information. Because I think right now we're making a lot of decisions based on speculation, and I think we just need to actually accumulating the actual facts of the situation. Okay, so I would like to move forward, but I did find the 40,000 was a bit high.
Okay, so my question would be, are we going to be going out for an RFP in regards to asking for them to come back and for what they're going to tell us and what's going to be in the report, or are we asking or what we're looking for in the report, or where's it going?
Can we speak to that?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Joanne.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so it's going to depend on how we draft the request for proposal. So drafting the request for proposal will define how the individual consultant is going to respond. So if we know that I'll use my opinion just because this is kind of how I was visualizing it, but we don't know what the potential is for the entire peanut line in terms of multi-use. We also don't know what the community would like to use it for. So if let's say we just go in that direction for a second, and we write the draft report and we put more focus, or write the request for proposal, and put more focus on the information we're looking for. And that's when we'd work with council and say, what do you want out of this report? Because we know right now there's certain things that we could write, or certain things that we say we could do, but are we really being transparent and listening? So then we would draft the RFP based on the information we want back. We might get requests for proposals at $30,000 or $35,000, as I said, but until we move forward, we don't know how we're going to treat this trail. What's going to change on this trail? What can we do on this trail? I respect that it would be great to put money into the trail, but then are you putting money in only one area when maybe you need to put it in, more than one area? So since I've worked here and since we've purchased the peanut line, it was always the intention of both council and administration to develop a plan. As you know, McIntosh Perry did develop the beginning stages of what a communication plan would look like for the peanut line. And it was the intent to follow through with a master plan. And unfortunately, that was never done. And that was probably never done both from administration's perspective for not bringing forward, as well as from council maybe not seeing it as a priority. And in working with our CAO, Mr. Mills, and looking to see, what is the best way we can utilize this facility or this asset, we can't answer those questions internally because we've never done the investigations.
Okay, so go ahead, Chief.
I'll just for a moment speak to the $40,000 value. So much like our current draft of the recreation master plan, we are requiring our proponents to explain to us how they will their process, at which they need to justify the hours that they're putting in and the different staff that they're putting in, and that all becomes part of our evaluation matrix when we're looking at the submissions. This would be the exact same, where we'll expect the proponent to justify the full set of facts that they're going to do as far as the number of hours towards consultation, report writing, all the different parts of what would come out of a study. So with that, we will be able to evaluate that. If we leave it, the dollar figure, the budget figure open, we will probably get some cheaper. We will most definitely get some significantly higher, but we'll be able to evaluate those with the information that's written in the proposals, because it will be a requirement of the RFP. And with that, we'll be able to come to council with the different options, with the different submissions for the RFP, and explain that, so that you'll be comfortable with the proposed result in the end. So.
Okay, I'm going to, I'll go back to Councillor McDonnell in a second, but I was agreeing with Councillor Lang that I was in favor of deferring it. But just based on that, it's not costing us anything at that point to go out and get an RFP to come back to see what it's going to cost us. But I don't know if they're going to give us a complete detailed information in regards to everything they're exactly going to do, or are we going to be asking for those detailed information in respect? I mean, somebody coming in from an outside Kingston or Toronto or wherever they're coming from, do they realize east of 34 that there might be 6, 7 different farmers involved in regards to the land, or are we going to have to inform them all that information? So I'm just not sure what all we're going to get out of this report, and I don't know who's providing the information. Are they going to provide it to us, or are we providing it to them to put into the RFP? Go ahead, Chief.
So it will be it's our intention to have as much of that information in general terms, not in absolute specifics, but in general terms. We will be describing the structure of the space, and also our requirements of what we expect out of a study. We want to get some non-biased or some other visions for the space that we may be able to look to. Staff could do that research, those studies there, but we might be missing some of the intricate details of how in other locations they've dealt with neighboring abutting landowners, items such as that. So I think having an outside agency do this, that have the skills to go out and do the consultations, but making sure that they follow our detailed requirements up front. So.
Okay, I will probably at this point support to go and get an RFP. I'm not saying I'll support the RFP once we get it back at that point. I'm just not sure how much more information we're going to get than we already know that's out there. We know the condition of our peanut line. We know, I think, what council wants on the peanut line. We know what kind of work has to be done on the peanut line. I think we have to start putting costs to those amounts. So I'm not sure how much more information we're going to get out of that RFP, but I will probably vote in favor of it just to see what information we're getting back, and then council can make a decision at that point if we move forward or if we defer it or decline it. Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Personally, I'd like to see us have either a separate conversation on this at, say, a special meeting of council, and I'd like that to be, because I'd like to see a show of hands right now who's actually written that peanut line from the Quebec border on council, from the Quebec border to Cornwall. You have, Lam? I know I have, Martin. Because I think you'll be shocked when you do the whole thing. I know I grew up on it. I grew up on the worst part of it. We have the one section, I think, from us to there may be 3 other farms in the section of 10, say. Like, there's definitely some serious work that has to be done, and ours isn't even the worst of the worst. I don't know. I personally think we have to have a full discussion before we go to even going to an RFP. Personally, I have my opinions. I have parts that I don't think are worth the time, and maybe they should be sold, or maybe the proceeds could be used, or I just don't see, I don't know. I don't think who's going to come in, like you said, Mr. Mayor, to have a company come in from, say, Ottawa, that's going to come down and tell us what to do with it. they're going to have less opinion, I think, than any of us, because I just think we're going to have a better idea sitting here ourselves, hashing it out, deciding what we want to do, and whether we move forward with like a meeting the same style we had with our public meeting for tree canopy with landowners or with the general public, and then we do focused meetings with landowners and involve the ag committee and whoever else we feel is necessary. I know from my point of view, and maybe I have a bias to it, but there's a lot of work for, I mean, maybe is a little less potential on one end than there is on the other, and a lot of cost. I just don't see the point of spending 40,000 to be told what we already know.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chief, did you have your hand up?
That's okay. I'll let you pass on.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. It sounds like everybody would like something to happen with the peanut line, which I think is great. But I don't know what we or staff is going to tell this company that comes in that we want from them. You know, we all want something to happen, but I don't know what the rest of council thinks, what their vision of the peanut line is. So, I mean, we have to kind of give them an idea. I don't want to just say that we have this space, what should we do with it? I mean, I think that's too broad. I think we need to give them some parameters and say, you know, this is, you know, kind of where we would like to see it go. Is that possible? Do you have, you know, other ideas that would complement that or something? It just, it seems like we're just throwing it out there as if we don't know anything about it. And I have some pretty definite ideas what I think should happen to it. I'd be comfortable if everybody wanted to go along with my ideas. I'd be comfortable just going ahead and that's the plan. But I don't know what everybody else's ideas are. So I think we need to have some more conversation on this, and maybe Councillor McDonnell's right. Maybe we need to have a meeting amongst ourselves. Where do we want to go with this? What do we want to see in this if this report's going to go forward? I'm not against them coming back and saying, here's some ideas, this is what we would do for you, you know, without spending any money. I could maybe live with that, but I'm not ready to put $40,000 on the table right now and not even knowing what we're going to get.
Okay, so Councillor Lang and Councillor McDonnell, are you both asking to have it deferred until this council has an opportunity to meet to have further discussion in regards to where we want to go with the peanut line? Is that what you're requesting?
Yes, I would want to see what's actually being asked of the RFP, because I know we can turn the peanut line into what, say, Champlain Township has, but you open your pocketbook because it's going to cost you a blank check. And I'm not.
We appreciate that, but that's the decision we have to make. If we're going to move forward and we're going to do this plan, we're not doing it for nothing. It's a decision that we're going to have to start spending money on the peanut line.
We're going to an RFP with no real idea of what we want in mind, because like Councillor Lang said, I have no idea what anybody else wants. I know what I want, but I don't know what everyone else wants.
Okay, Councillor Jaworski, then Deputy Mayor Warden, and then I'll wrap it up.
I guess I just wanted to highlight, though, that there's a lot of value for understanding what the residents want, as well as having a clear picture on the, you know, the concerns of the property owners. I mean, I would not have known that the Raisin River Foot Race had reached out to administration to potentially use the line. And perhaps there's many other groups that if it was in different shape, they perhaps would want to use. And I think depending on the interest there, that also kind of defines what level of rehabilitation it might need. If it's a certain type of use, perhaps it's a much more expensive rehabilitation than if it's a seasonal use or something that's slightly different. I mean, I think though that one thing that I find is a hang up is the cost, but we have no idea. Like, I mean, we're throwing out large sums. Well, we're not actually using figures, but we're saying it's very large, but we don't really have any sense of the scale. And is that something that would come out of out of this work? Is that, you know, they might say, well, okay, fine, they'll tell you that you can do this, and this, but are they going to give us any sense about what the cost would be? Or is that then like step 2 to this process?
Go ahead, Mrs. Haley.
So when you write the request for proposal, you provide a list of objectives and a list of items that have to be done. And then they would have to provide a cost on what they're proposing to complete that work. And typically your consultant's costs are going to consist of your hourly rates, your upset limit, any administration fees or traveling fees. And then what you tell them in advance when you prepare the RFP is what your point system is and how you're evaluating the RFP. So then put enough points towards the cost so that you have that chance to really sit back and look and say, okay, what are we getting from this consultant for this much money versus this consultant for this much money? And at the end of the day, council does not have to move forward with the RFP. It's entirely up to council. We word that accordingly. But you would get RFPs with upset limits, plus HST and administrative costs broken down.
But no, my point, sorry, was that they're going to tell us what people want, but they're also going to tell us how much it's going to cost to rehabilitate the peanut line to achieve that. Like, for me, that's also information that we would need. And I'd rather have that sooner rather than later to start actually having, you know, a real vision going forward.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question on that. I apologize. That's going to depend on what we ask of them to write the RFP. That'll also dictate what firm is going to respond to the RFP as well. Because then if you're looking for, let's say, rehabilitation, culvert replacements, bridge upgrades, you're now having a planning firm to partner with an engineering firm to come up with those costs. You would have to write the RFP that way.
Go ahead.
So it is two separate things then, really.
Councillor Joyce.
Yeah. No. So again, I mean, I would like to try and do something moving. I'd like the idea of going forward with an RFP where we're looking at seeing what the people can bring back. And then at least we've started something. And if they come back and if we look at the submission and it goes, well, this is what we can already do ourselves, then no matter. But I do think there's a lot of value in trying to get feedback from the residents and not just going on what the five of us think is the right, you know, that's the be all and end all of to this.
I agree with you, Councillor Jaworski, but I also agree with the fact with your other comments in regards to, and I was anticipating that that's what it was going to be. I thought they were going to come back with some value in respect of, you know, you need drainage. Our peanut line is very long. I was hoping that we would find out this is the best use for the peanut line in regards to what people are looking for and what they're asking for. And to accomplish that, you would have to put in tile drain and culverts put in for drainage off the peanut line. So we're going to be doing two different reports, and we're not going anywhere yet. We're going to be. It's not a $40,000 report anymore. We're probably closer to 80 to 100,000 by the time we're finished, and we haven't even put a shovel in the ground. So I'd rather support an RFP that's going to give us all of it together in one shot than going out and getting this report and telling us what we should do with it. And then once we have that, now we have to go back out and do another RFP in regards to getting what it's going to cost to do that. And then we have to decide if now do we find $2 million to redo the peanut line. But Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Some of these costs, why can we not come up with some cost in-house here? You know, we gravel a pile of roads every year. And I know there may be things that we want to do that, you know, go over and above at some point, but right now the peanut line's a mess. We could spend some money and we could get it so it's at least passable in lots of areas. The drainage issue is kind of a shame because the peanut line was always raised up. It was a rail line. There was never any drainage issues. The only place there's going to be drainage issues now is where people have taken the fill out and turned it into fields. That's going to be where the drainage problems is. And then those areas will be tiled. But tile drainage is meant to drain crops, not meant to drain roadways. It doesn't work when you pack it with vehicles. So it's a shame that part is where it is, but that's, you know, we'll blame it on our previous councils. Okay, I just don't like to see us spend money for an engineering study to come in and tell us how much it's going to cost us to gravel it. We should be able to do that ourselves. And I'd like to be putting this money to graveling it and putting some, you know, doing some brushing and putting some, you know, anyway, I'm not going to say no to the study till we see, but I definitely don't want to pay them to come back and tell us how much it's going to cost us to put gravel on it. If we can't figure that out with the amount of roads that we have in this township, then we have a problem. If it was to, you know, put paid paths in or something like this, well, then maybe we'd need some help with that. But I don't think we're at that point yet.
No, I agree. And I think you're right, Councillor Lang, in regards to going from Williamstown to Boundary Road, but we have some major repairs going east of 34 to the Quebec border. And I'm not sure if we could do that in-house in regards to coming up with costs in respect to drainage and bringing that back to a peanut line or a trail. But I was hoping or presuming this RFP would go out to come up with all of that in one RFP. But I'm going to Councillor McDonnell.
Can't afford to do it all at once anyway. So why don't we
Oh, I know.
into doing the part that we know what we want and we know that could be improved, and don't let the other part deteriorate anymore and move on from there. At least something's happening rather than another year and waiting for another study and nothing happens on the penal line in the meantime.
But even west of going west of Williamstown to Boundary Road, there's probably some ditching that has to be done, some culverts put in to bring it where it probably should be, because that's where some of the potholes are occurring. So I'm going to Councillor McDonnell, Deputy Mayor Warden, back to Chief, and then we have to wrap it up. It's 20 to 10 and we still have lots on the go and we have to wrap up before 11. So go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess the only comment I have left to make is that I agree with Councillor Lang. We have a lot more we can do. I mean, take this 40,000 and we can pay somebody to go through with a brusher and chip back a lot of the stuff that's overgrown on the peanut line. There's spots on the east side that are terrible and there's spots on the west side that are growing in. If we just maintain where we're at right now and put $30,000 in gravel down and put 10,000 in brushing on and see how far you go with that. I agree with Councillor Lang. We should be able to come up with it in-house, how much gravel it's going to take us. I mean, you're opening a can of worms going into starting with some of those things like where the fill's been taken out. You got to figure too, the fill may be taken out. It's easy to say those farmers have to put it back, but some of those farmers don't own those farms anymore. So then you're going to somebody who's already purchased it, trying to get them to put it back in. You're opening a real can of worms. I think we just start with what we know we can do right now, and we move forward when we come up with a true plan between ourselves and with what we figured the rest of the constituents are looking for, and then we move forward paying somebody to tell us how to move forward from there. But right now, I think we're all over the place on what we want to do with the one end of it. Let's work on the part that we know is any good, and let's maintain what we've got on the east end and start cleaning it up. But to go and pay somebody $40,000, they go a lot longer fixing the parts that we got now.
I disagree, I guess, a little bit in regards to opening a can of worms. It is our property. I don't think we're opening a can of worms. I think we have to decide if we're going to maintain the property and keep it to ourselves, or if we're going to sell it to the budding farmers or budding owners that are along it. That's a decision we're going to have to make. And maybe the report is to come up with in respect of everything east of Williamstown going towards the Quebec border. And we already kind of have an idea of what it is between Williamstown and the Boundary Road. It's in fair condition and just needs a lot of brushing, probably some drainage, and then lots of granular put on there and grading. But it's the east end, I think, is the most important in regards to knowing what we can do with that and if we're going to bring it back to some type of a trail. So I'm going to Deputy Mayor Warden, to the Chief, and it looks like Mr. Mills has a comment, and then we'll wrap up.
Thank you very much. It's been a hearty discussion. I feel that if the RFP is written correctly, we could have a product that will give us information to guide us for the years to come. And I remain in favor of moving forward with the resolution as presented. Thank you.
Okay, going with that, I'll ask the question to Mr. Robertson and Mrs. Haley. If this was deferred only based on what we're going to be asking in the RFP, can we have that come back to council before we go out to an RFP? So we know what's going to be in the RFP?
Sure. Through you, Mr. Mayor. How about I propose this? How about, council's decision to defer, but I'll just take a quick moment. We have $120,000 budget in the 2021 budget for the peanut line. A fair amount of that will be for the rehabilitation of the bridge on Johnstown over the Raisin River in Williamstown. John Street. We know that there's some areas, and we're going to be allocating funds very shortly of that budget to do some upkeep of the property. We'll focus on the areas where we can get the best use of our dollars. In the coming months, we'll invite council to tour the one into the other, so you're well aware of the limitations of certain areas, and we can have further discussion about what the future is. basically this process, we proposed this process for a study to bring us vision to some of the areas, how we can enhance some of the areas. Operationally, we know, and administratively, we know that we need to address some of the landowner issues and the structure of how the peanut line has gotten to at this point. With that, I think maybe if this is deferred, we will bring back additional information on our idea to be put into an RFP, and maybe some revised information on pricing. And we can do that in the coming months or later on in the year after we do these first steps.
For me personally, I would like to see, I don't want to spend $40,000 and the report comes back and it's not what council was hoping for. So I would like to see what we're going to be putting into the RFP before we send that RFP out. That would be my opinion. I don't know what council's thoughts are on that. If you want to see that prior, or if we're going to spend 40,000 and hope for the best, we get back what council was looking for.
I definitely would like to see it.
Like to see it as well.
I'd like to see it, but I don't feel we need to defer. I think we can proceed tonight and then see what's going to be asked of the RFP.
I just think if we ask for an RFP, we're not all on the same page. I don't know. I don't think we are all on the same page at this point to where we figure it should be going. I think we should go, as Chief Robertson said, we can visit the site, we can take a look at it. We can either we have a closed meeting on it or we have a special meeting on it, and that's all we discuss and we hammer through it. And we figure out what council wants to see as a vision for it, and then go from there and send out an RFP if we want to do it at that point.
Okay. Okay. I'm anticipating it's gonna be a lot more than $40,000 if we're asking for the needs and what the peanut line should be used for, and two, the additional in regards to drainage, culverts, and so on and so on. So if we're doing it from Boundary Road to the Quebec border, if they have to travel this peanut line, I can guarantee you we're not looking at 40,000. We're probably going to be doubling that dollars in regards. So we have to decide what we want in this report. And I think we need to come back to a separate meeting, even if it's a special meeting just for this purpose only. But we have to decide what we want to see in this report if we move forward with the RFP. So I have 2 or 3, I believe, saying to defer it at this present time till we come back with more information at a later date. Is that correct, Councillor Lang? Councillor McConnell? Councillor Jaworski?
I'm okay with deferring it, but I mean, I don't want this to stall. Like, I think I want, like, if we're, I want this to be coming, like, I would like the opportunity to provide some feedback between now and like a council meeting coming soon, where I'm, where I can share what I think we should have in the RFP, and perhaps as other people could do too, and then kind of take a look at what that, would look like. I don't want this to be, I don't want this to be pushed off indefinitely.
No, I agree with you. I think we need to come back with the RFP in regards to exactly what is going to be in the RFP and what we're asking for, and then we can get some ideas. It's not hard to phone an engineering firm and say, look, just give me an idea what you think this could be tendered for. We would get that information. And 2 is we don't have to wait until May 15th or May 20th to go out and look at the peanut line. I think we can still make a decision prior to that. And when the RFP comes back, at least we have some more knowledge that we did travel the peanut line, and then we can make proper decisions at that point. But it seems to be the wishes of council that we will defer this motion, bring it back at a future council meeting. But I think Councillor Jaworski's right, Chief Robertson and Mrs. Haley. We don't want to see this prolonged. Bring it back as soon as you can in regards to what will be in that RFP. Okay, thank you. So number 5, we'll move to the 2020 council remuneration and expenses. Mr. McDonald.
Do we not have to vote on that, Mr. Mayor?
No, we deferred it.
There was a vote? You recorded it or whatever? Was no formal ask?
Through you.
I'm in favor of it as it was presented.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, there's a resolution you'll have to read and a vote for a postponement.
Postponed, yep. But it doesn't. So I'm asking to be postponed, Kelly?
Through you, so you'll read the resolution as is, and then I'll vote to postpone. You'll call for a postponed, call for them to vote to postpone.
Okay, I'll try it. Moved by Lyle Warren, second by Sam McDonnell, be resolved that staff report 41-2021 be received and the council directs administration to prepare and request for proposals for the development of a peanut line master plan. And furthermore, that the treasurer be directed to transfer $40,000 from the general reserves to the 2021 recreation and facilities budget. So I had asking if that, if council was request is to have that postponed. So we're asking if it to be postponed. All in favor of that motion? Opposed? The motion is carried. So it'll be postponed till a future meeting and hopefully not long away. We have 3 weeks before our next council meeting, so maybe there's an opportunity to bring it back in early. Okay, thank you. So Mr. McDonald, the 2020 council remuneration and expenses.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a pretty standard report, happens every year, has to be done before March 31st. As you can see that last year, so 2020, total remuneration was down. This is mainly because of the cancellation of events at AMO and Ontario East in live person. The virtual meetings have saved us some money. You'll see, 144,000 this year, or this year being 2020, 154,000 being 2019. On page number 68, you'll see the breakdown per councillor, deputy mayor, and mayor. Remuneration is your remuneration through your kind of weekly or bi-weekly stipend, mileage, and communications and supplies also included in your pay, so to speak. And then conferences are for conferences. For the mayor and Councillor Lang, in this case, are both board members at RRCA and are funded or provided a stipend for meetings. So that sums up your report. The items on the bottom of page 68 are just to check to make sure it balances against our GL in light gray. So those aren't really topical, but they're just as proofs to the amounts. If anybody has any questions, do let me know.
Okay, thank you. I think it's pretty much self-explanatory. Any questions or comments from members of council? Not seeing none, I have a motion moved by Martin Lang, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be resolved that staff report 42-2021 be received and that the presentation of the statements of remuneration and expenses for the 2020 be acknowledged. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. And we will go to the next one, which is the review of multi-unit water rates. Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to start by saying that Councillor Jaworski and Councillor McDonnell let me know of a few spots where they would require more information. I had desired to get that information on Friday or over the weekend, but I didn't put it together in a presentable format. So I would request that if we could defer this particular motion. It was in regards to multi-units, obviously the report, but specifically the difference between apartment buildings and your standard duplex, so to speak, because they are different animals, and just a little bit further review on that, and then a little bit more clarity going through. I've said before that sometimes I struggle with it's a U curve. It's considered too little information is confusing and too much information is confusing. And I don't think I hit this one just right. I think I put a little bit too little information. So I'd like to provide council with this report refined at an upcoming meeting, as well as perhaps with a presentation to supplement it. In addition to that, though, I know that there are some questions regarding it's maybe not topical to multi-unit water rates, but I will come back to council for some. We received a letter regarding Kennedy Redwood, so I can approach that at the next staff report. That's not so topical to this report. I'll leave it open to council if you're okay with a deferment for more information, and if you require more and you haven't contacted me, please let me know, and I'd be glad to add it if that's an acceptable path for council.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Thank you for your time earlier to go through that report, and thank you for that you're going to prepare a presentation to go through it with some additional information. I'd like to just comment quickly on the Kennedy Redwood point that you made. So one thing that's recently come to light, and I know this is no fault of anyone, but that they weren't included on the the water weights consultation process that we had that was presented to us a few months ago now. And for me, certainly, like the whole water rates issue, that was a fundamental piece of it, is ensuring that folks that are on water systems were aware of what was happening, and that they had a chance to provide some input, and just so that they have clarity on what's happening and what to see for the future. And it seems that they weren't included in that. So I don't know if there's a possibility of somehow engaging them, sort of doing like a second round, sort of survey input to them. And also, like in their case, that we're looking at a raise of 10% per year for 5 years. So it is a 50% increase. I think it's talking like $600-$700 for each user there on an annual basis. And I was hoping, the data that was used to develop their projections, was based on a certain number of units in that subdivision. And I know it is an active subdivision. It is quite popular. And, perhaps the number of units there now has changed in terms of perhaps building lots or lots that have been severed. So, or if there is any other, things that could be looked at in terms of ensuring that the rate there that we've projected for the future really is, just to see if we can maybe look at if there's some more savings that we could try and find for those users. Again, if you have more users, it's less cost to each. So that's something that I was hoping Mr. McDonald could look at as well before he comes back on this topic.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Jaworski. I can, because we can always miss through severance putting them on a list, because your Kennedy Redwood Estates water users it's paid through a local improvement charge, so it's on their taxes. So if it doesn't get picked up as a building permit comes through, it's possible that it's being charged the empty lot, which is less than a developed lot. And with so few users on that, and the cost is $34,000 to $40,000 to run that facility, each little bit of $500 or $1,000 here, if you have 3 or 4 properties that are not being billed properly, it can make a decent sized difference, because $3,000 is 10%, which is considerable. So I will certainly look into that. Regarding your comment re the survey, keeping in mind that survey was predominantly for the regional rate, but you are correct, and I apologize for that omission. It was not done in malice. But I acknowledge that it did happen.
Thank you, Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to thank Mr. McDonald for taking the time on Friday to speak with myself and Councillor Jaworski, and cleared up a lot of things. I think it would be good to defer it and to have a formal presentation come back with a bit more information. I agree, Kennedy Redwood is a hot topic, especially as I think most of us have gotten emails on it. I do disagree. I know it's going to be a lot of money for water in there, especially at a 50% increase. Although at the end of the day too, we have to keep in mind, maybe we should be talking to the province for things such as this. Water costs money, but we can't legally subsidize it due to the government policies. It has to be paid by the rate users, and there's an argument for that both ways, but we should be having that conversation both with themselves as well as the province, because I think a lot of the users maybe don't realize how big a deficit we do run down there year over year. So
Okay, thank you. I do have a motion, so I'll read the motion and I'll ask it to be postponed, and then you can vote on that postponement. I have a motion moved by Lyle Warden, second by Sam McDonnell. Be resolved that staff report 43-2021 is received, and that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of South Glengarry support the current Glen Walter rate structure, and that the South Lancaster multi-unit structure be amended to charge subsequent unit minimums at 70% and remain there. So this motion was asked to be postponed. So if I can ask all in favor of the postponement for a later date. The motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Okay, we'll move to number 7, the disposal of the used equipment, the ice resurfacer. Chief Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The South Glengarry Recreation Department has removed from service a 2011 Zamboni model ice resurfacer. It was replaced with a 2020 unit also built by Zamboni. The vehicle in question is 10 years old, and it was authorized for replacement in the 2020 capital budget. New vehicle replacement was purchased by recommendation of council and is in service at our Shoreland Recreation Center. So the plan would be, with council's permission, would be to dispose of the vehicle and by posting it for sale on the Govdale's resale website, in addition to our own website. This method would follow the direction of our disposition of assets bylaw. So this is just a housekeeping item requesting that we divest of the piece of unused equipment.
Okay, thank you. A couple of questions to you, Chief Robertson. Do we have any idea of the value of the used equipment?
Sure. If it would have been taken on trade, our supplier referenced probably less than in the $5,000 to $10,000 range. I have done some research to similar newer and older units in online locations, and they spread the gamut from $10,000 to $30,000. So sorry.
No, it's okay. My question in regards to the one that we gave to Banesville, I guess, is one of our other older machines. You know what year that is and what kind of value that would be? Is it maybe make sense to give this one to the Banesville one and try and sell off the one they have? Because at some point we're going to run into some financial repairs on the one that they have there.
The unit that's in Banesville, I don't have a, it would be, I just on our asset. It's
going to be 20 years plus.
It will be 20 years in essence old. From my experience with the unit at Banesville, it has taken very little maintenance costs. Any of the maintenance that has been done to the unit has been done by the Banesville Recreation Association and the community there. It's in fine shape, and pending anything significant to go wrong with it, I don't see any need to replace that unit. To keep as an asset within South Glengarry, this unit as a 2011 model would probably bring the highest funds back from a sale back to the municipalities.
Okay, and what was the cost of the new one?
New one was just over the $100,000 mark.
Okay, no, that's fine. Okay, no, it was just a thought in regards to the one in the Banesville area. I just don't want to get rid of this one and then we take 10,000 and put it into that one. So, Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to comment or bring up the issue that, sort of on the idea of should we dispose of it, is, the new one that we had, it was out of commission in the fall for about a week, where there was issues where it wasn't keeping its down pressure and it wasn't, the blade wasn't scraping properly. So we actually used the old one while that one was getting repaired. So I just wanted to raise I wanted to raise the issue, maybe explore the issues, like, is it really worthwhile to dispose of it? If that same issue were to happen again, what is it going to cost us to rent, a unit, or what kind of disruption could it cause the users? I know it's not normal to have a backup unit, but or is Banesville the only other site that could use having a Zamboni for their outdoor ice surface? I don't know, is there perhaps some, we have some other ice surfaces as well, perhaps that, they might benefit from a unit as well. Because the $10,000 to $30,000 range, I don't know, but I looked quickly, it seems like they go more on the lower end, but maybe it's, maybe it has more value to us for those two reasons.
Yeah, the only reason I was looking at more Banesville is because they have an inside storage for it, which other facilities, we don't have those capabilities, but Chief Roberts.
So on the storage would always be an issue through you, Mr. Mayor, in other locations. I don't know that we have any facilities that could physically house the equipment properly. The size of the ice rinks, these machines take a certain radius to turn in the corners. Our other facilities, our outdoor rinks, are fairly small. If we had to get into a a scheme where we're moving this unit around, I think it would be quite taxing to our recreation department. On the fact of if we ever need it as a replacement unit, all the suppliers that I understand have rental units available for catastrophic needs, like a large failure where we need to send our unit out that can't be repaired on site. So those, I don't have what that value would be on a per hour, per day, or per week rental rate. I don't have that information because, to my knowledge, it's been very seldom where we've ever had to do that. So, yeah.
Okay, so it was just bad luck that we had because it was like almost a week, and like we didn't send it away, right? They replaced it on our at our location when they repaired it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So just to build on that, we did do some significant hydraulic remedies to the unit that were all under warranty. There remains another one that needs to be done. We are just and they've been to examine the issue. It's operating properly, but it's not operating completely like we think it should as a brand new unit worth $100,000. They are going to be replacing some other items on it. We're just not sure if it's going to happen before or after our ice removal on the 11th of April. And if it's after, it doesn't matter. If it's before, then we will at this point have our unit that we can replace it. But going in the future and from the past, we've not needed to have a second unit for immediate needs, and we've been able to repair on sites.
Thank you.
I guess worst comes to worst, Chief Robertson, we can always go get the one in Baynesville for a few days if we had to. So I mean, that's an opportunity. But is there any other? Oh, yeah, dress warm. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Not seeing none. I have a motion moved by Martin Lang, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be resolved that staff report 44-2021 be received and that the township 2011 Zamboni ice resurfacer be deemed surplus and sold pursuant to section 5 of bylaw 36-07, being a bylaw regulating the disposition of assets. You heard the motion. All in favor of the motion? The motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Okay, we'll move into other business, dog tags and animal control bylaw. Ms. Brunet.
Did she fall asleep?
She was just there.
Hi, through you, Mr. Mayor. She just sent me a message. Her computer is frozen.
Okay, does anybody else know anything about that, or do we wait a few minutes, or do we defer it? Deputy Mayor Warden?
Well, I can tell you, I read the staff report and I agree with it. Literally today, there was a dog missing and it was all over Facebook. That was one of the things. It's not a cost-effective program. Anyways.
Okay, Councillor Jaworski.
Sure. Assuming that Ms. Brunet is restarting her computer so that she'll join us again. I mean, I also I read through it and I had a chance to exchange some questions and email with Ms. Brunet. Like, I was really glad to see it. I think it's fantastic that the staff is looking at things that, look at how we've always done things and see if it makes sense. And I think this is a perfect example of, something that takes quite a bit of time that really we're not getting a lot of benefit from. I mean, if we could eliminate completely the dog tag program, I mean, in terms of dollars and cents, it's $2,000 more cost, but in terms of staff time, staff productivity, also, I mean, I have dogs, I got dog tags. I mean, it's a bit of an annoyance, frankly, like not having to do that, I think is a benefit. And from what I can see, they provide very little value. I mean, so many of the dogs that are, of the 60 calls in South Glengarry on average, most of those, I mean, very few dogs are returned based on tags. And even the ones that are identified, folks don't want to pay the $75 fee to get their dog back. And then, on top of that, there's a lot of dogs that are not South Glengarry dogs that are being picked up in our municipality. So if this was a program that it, really represented only costs to South Glengarry dog owners, that would be one thing. But really, there's costs that have to do with dogs that have nothing to do with South Glengarry. So I think, the dog tag program doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Sorry about that, Council, through you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, that was very frustrating. Zoom is the only thing that stopped on my computer. Okay.
We'll let you go ahead with your presentation. Councillor Jaworski just answered everything for us, so you're done.
I did hear, I logged on to my phone in the meantime.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to briefly share my screen with you all. Thank you very much for being patient with me. I know it's been a long evening. Can everyone see this?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay, so the dog tag program presentation, I heard briefly about through Deputy Mayor Warden as well as Councillor Jaworski. I'm glad to hear that so far we're all on the same page for the ideas that are being presented this evening. So the Township of South Glengarry's administration is reviewing the effectiveness of the program. The current program is controlled through the animal control bylaw. So whatever is decided this evening will be brought back to council with the new bylaw for animal control. The point of the licensing program when it was initially started was specifically for bringing the dogs home efficiently. What is the process if I have a dog? You own a dog with the current bylaw, you're required to have a township tag and you would be able to purchase it at currently 3 locations, 4 including the municipality, the township, and historically 5. How do we obtain compliance? We try our best through social media by providing dog tags at retail locations, as previously mentioned, as well as advertisements through the newspaper and mailouts. The mailouts are an annual remail to the current owner, so we're not really addressing any new dog owners. Tag history. So based on 5,948 households within the Township of South Glengarry, in the past 5 years, the most dog tags sold has been 700, which is only 20% or less of the statistical amount of dogs we should have. In 2020, we sold less than 300 tags, which is less than 5% of the statistical dogs in our municipality. So based on the stats provided by an outside company, 41% of dogs, 41% of households, would have at least 1 dog. That means that in South Glengarry, we would have at least 2,440 dogs. How did we sell more tags in the past and why is the last 2 years so low compared to the historical amounts? We had a door-to-door salesperson. This had to go through council. So evidently you are aware of this process where we hired an outside party. They would go door to door, whether it's driving or walking. They would never be able to address more than 2 communities within South Glengarry at a time because they would do it on top of their normal job or they had other things to do and they couldn't just do dog, house to house sales for dog tags. When they saw dogs and owners would refuse to buy a tag, they would bring it back to the municipality and administration would address it from there. However, this would also increase the cost of the program, which was ineffective to begin with. We were doing our best at the time to try and make it work, and statistically we can see it didn't. So right now, the current costs of the program to purchase a minimum amount of tags, which every company is 500 tags, is approximately $260. The amount we pay the retail stores is a percentage of the amount of tags they sell, which every year varies between $240, varies around $240, sorry. The advertising, we always budget for $500. And for the personnel, so administrative and enforcement, we did a median of $1,430. This is going to show you the cost for dog tags within the township. The current program, the tags cost, the administrative time, the advertising, and then the overall cost is your last dot up in the top right corner of your screens. Without the tag program, we're looking at the orange line. Really, we would continue to do the advertising because we still have a responsibility as a municipality to ensure the control and care of animals. Therefore, we would still have some type of program in order to be able to provide that service. The green represents the current cost. The blue represents the cost without the program. The dog pound always varies. We budget since the beginning of time with Kevin Castleman has been 26,000. Really, we see more around 19 to 21,000. Income from tags is enough. It's $4,700, but the cost to run the program is $2,435. So the total cost of the taxpayers when we take out that income we receive from the tags is $18,700. When we look at the blue program, which would be potentially what we're looking at without the tags, is zero income, which would mean that the total cost to run the dog pound would be given to the taxpayers, so $21,500. Evidently, this means that we have an increase. This increase would be a cost that the township would have to absorb. That means it would increase taxation by $2,800. But this means a median of 30 cents per residential property. It's not a drastic increase. All of this to say, social media, as I heard Councillor and Deputy Mayor Warden say, that it does a better job than our dog tag system is. If we're registering less than 5% of the dogs in the township, we're not giving any of them home, because when the dog catcher has them, they're either being posted on Facebook or the neighbor down the street is posting it on Facebook, and then bang, bang, boom, 5 hours later, the dog is brought home. When it's with the dog catcher, it might be a little more difficult. However, the residents have that opportunity to call the dog catcher to get dogs that are roaming at large for the safety of the public and for themselves and for that dog. They also, the residents also have the opportunity to contact the township when they lose their dog for us to post it on social media. So the whole point of this whole presentation, council, is for guidance. We have 3 options, unless there's one that you have all thought of. But option 1 would say, keep it status quo, even if we're selling 300 tags a year. We're going to keep doing this program, see what we can do to make it better. Option 2 is dissolve the program, and we would increase the tax. We would absorb that $2,800 and increase the tax rate by 30 cents to $1.30. Option number 3, once again, we dissolve this program, and then we would issue a to be determined rate to every single taxpayer in South Glengarry, which would mean it could be the 30 cents to $1.30, depending on your tax rate. Or we can say, let's make it a flat fee of $1.50 per taxpayer, and whatever additional income that is given, we would reinvest into the community, whether it be by microchipping clinics, whether it be by spay and neuter clinics, or scoop and stoop locations, things like that. We would give it back. Okay, so here we're going to go into a little bit more detail if we decide to choose to dissolve the program. If we're dissolving it, the township will still create a registration accessible through our website. It'll be completely free. You go on, under the animal control, you write your dog's name, you write its information, the type of identification it has, whether it's a personalized dog tag or a microchip, and then you'll upload a photo of your dog. Once we receive a call saying your dog's lost, it's Ella, she's a black lab and mixed collie, can you post it on your website? Oh, actually, look at this, our dog catcher found this, and we're able to pull it up with the information that you registered for free through our website. There's no township dog tags involved. However, you would still be required to provide some type of identification on your dog so that we can return it home. Okay, counselors, or council, I should say, it's time to choose an option. Once the option is chosen, we can review the bylaw, and then administration will review the bylaw and present it back to council at a later date. It would not, if we decide to dissolve the dog tag program, it wouldn't be applicable until 2022 due to people have already bought dog tags in 2021. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Burnett, for your presentation. It's a great presentation. I have my opinion in regards to not 1 or 3, but that's my opinion. So I will move to Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Veronica, I continue to be impressed with your the reports that you've been doing. I like the thinking outside the box, and I'm not sure where I sit. I feel like what we're doing now it's pointless, and so I feel like maybe having an optional registry of some sort. But yeah, I'm getting tired.
So Deputy Mayor Warden, would you lean more to option 2 or 3 then, if that's the case?
Can you put them on the screen again?
Option 2 was to put a fee of approximately 30 cents to $1.30 per household, or putting a flat rate per household.
Well, I didn't mind the comments of a flat rate, and then I think the township does have we have a responsibility to promote, proper ownership. I think we do have a duty to do that, and I think having a flat fee would allow staff to do that, and I think it would be more effective.
Okay, so that's option 3, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Do we have to have why not just wait to the, put a line item in? It's a $20,000 item here. I mean, we don't think we need to have anything that professional. I think we can allow, 20, 25,000 in the budget for it. If it ends up being a little less, a little more, do we need to put a certain set amount per household? I'm not sure. Maybe at some point we're going to say that it's not worth spending the 21,000 to have a dog catcher in South Dundas, and we're, get rid of it altogether. I don't know, but maybe there's another option there. But anyway, I'm definitely in favor of getting rid of the tags. I mean, it's ridiculous. I think we do, because my wife says that we should, but I've never really been in favor of them. And most people nowadays, dogs aren't running free like they used to, 30 years ago. People are looking after their pets a little closer, I think, anyway. So either 2 or 3, no, not 3 for sure. I would be with 2, or just put a line item in the budget of 20,000 every year and just leave it at that.
Well, I agree, Councillor Lang. I think 2 is the option, not 3, but again, take out that 30 cents to $1.30, and we would make the decision on an annual basis in regards to what the budget is to run that portion of your department. And then that would dictate if it's going to be 30 cents or 45 cents or $2 that would be put onto the tax base. So that number can change on an annual basis depending on what the dog catcher is going to be in regards to funding. So I think it's just another day-to-day operation that we have to operate throughout the municipality. And I think Martin's right in regards to putting it on a budget line. So Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I couldn't remember if I was off mute. I agree with Councillor Lang. I don't see much value in the tags. I think you get more uptake if it was free. Like Councillor Lang said, a lot of these people, the dogs are taken better care of than, say, when I was a kid even. So I think it doesn't make sense to go around trying to sell these dog tags anymore for the little cost it's going to be. It's not that significant, but I definitely don't want to see a flat rate per household to have dogs, because not everybody does have a dog, and it doesn't seem fair that way. I think if we put it on a line item and then we keep it that way and manage it from there, I agree. The bigger issue for me is the dog catcher in South Dundas.
Okay, is that enough? Oh, Councillor Jaworski.
Well, I thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I just wanted to say that I'm just having, it's a line item in the budget. Basically, the cost is that we, like, the vast majority of that fee is dealing with the dog catcher. Basically, it costs us, $20,000 a year to deal with, 50 or 60 calls in that year. And I mean, I'd be nice if, it's like, I think $750 a month for the standby fee and then the kennel expenses. And then we pay on a per dog rate of who gets adopted or euthanized, et cetera. I mean, it'd be nicer if we could have something, if there was a more local option that could be, used to do that. One thing I did want to mention, and I mentioned this in my emails to you, Ms. Brunet, is that I would like that Mr. Castleman also be online, because at least it doesn't seem to me that when he gets a dog that ends up, it's not clear for residents in South Glengarry where they could potentially go and find those dogs that are posted online that are caught from here. Like, for example, this year, 22 dogs that were caught in South Glengarry were adopted out. They were never claimed. It'd be interesting to see, like, if folks could see those quickly and easily, because it seems like if it's not posted by a local person on the local page, that information isn't necessarily easily accessible. So I'd like that, if we're going to be paying that kind of standby fee anyways, I'd like to up the service just in that respect from the dog catcher.
Okay, is that enough information, Ms. Burnett, to come back with a report, or?
Without a doubt, Mr. Mayor, this is perfect.
Okay, thank you. So,
Thank you all for your time.
thank you. I agree with Deputy Mayor Warden. Thank you for the work you do and for thinking out of the box. So we'll wait for your new report to come at another council meeting. Sorry, I'm getting tired too.
Councilors, have a wonderful evening.
You too. Thank you. Okay, so the second thing under other business was the environmental committee minutes. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to, well, first of all, I wanted to thank council for listening to Alex Heyman from Food Cycler, because that was something that our committee had proposed that would go to council. The other thing I wanted to just pull out of our last minutes is that, something that's, we're passionate on the environment committee about diversion and proper recycling. And one thing that we discussed at length was how, to improve sort of the information that is being shared with residents about what can be recycled, because those things do change. I mean, Cornwall recently changed that they now take plastic film again. And, it took some time from when Cornwall announced it to when the information got, disseminated in South Glengarry. So that's something that, we hope that, council would be supportive of trying, looking at how can we encourage administration to be able to share, that information, whether it be with different like communication platforms or just to make sure that the social media is, up to, is on top of conveying that information to South Glengarry residents. So that's all I wanted to mention.
Okay, thank you. So Stephanie, are you asking for anything from council or staff in regards to coming back with something in regards to that, or?
Well, I know staff, I mean, it's something that the Environment Committee has, expressed to the staff members who participate in our committee. But, I just wanted to bring that up to council as well. If you would support that, I mean, obviously, staff has limited resources. So if that's something that, council would support, that staff look into, like there's Recycle Coach that Cornwall uses, South Stormont uses it. That's a portal where people can check if things are recyclable, or just to encourage that there's a bit more resources put to that communication piece. I'm hoping that council could support that.
Okay, is there any information coming from the environmental committee in respect to that, or is just what's in the minutes?
It's just what's in the minutes.
Okay, and who is in charge of that portion since Mr. McDonald is retired? Mr. Mills, I'm not sure if somebody in our staff can take more information back for us at another date. Ms. Koppel, do you have that answer?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The new staff resource on the Environment Committee is our roads manager, Chris LeBlanc, and Crystal LeBlanc, our executive assistant, is the secretary on that committee. So in terms of, staff involved in the committee, the lead staff liaison would be Mr. LeBlanc.
Okay, so is there information that Mr. LeBlanc can bring at a future council meeting, I guess, to support Councillor Jaworski's request tonight?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can touch base with Mr. LeBlanc on the communications side, as that would fall in corporate services. So perhaps he and I can touch base and bring something back to council on that.
Okay, thank you. Is that satisfactory, Councillor Jaworski?
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So I have a motion moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Martin Lang, be resolved that the council of the Township of South Glengarry accepts the items presented on the agenda as committee reports for information purposes only. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. And we will move to unfinished business. We'll go directly to corporate services, docks on township property. Mr. Mills.
Sorry, I was in the dark there.
No comment.
The docks are almost resolved. Chief Robertson and I are working on a few things with the one business and the one homeowner, and then we'll have a report for you on April 6th. Okay.
Okay, thank you. And while you're on the municipal servicing from the city of Cornwall.
That's ongoing with speaking to the business owners and or homeowners. Had a good meeting today with one of the largest business and made some progress there with EVB. So we will schedule a committee meeting upcoming, and we're progressing there.
Okay, thank you. And we'll move to finance services, water rates, water bill design.
So water rates will be coming back as presented this evening. Water bill design, that's with Central Square, which is formerly known as VADM. LED streetlights. We had a meeting, council meeting now, 2 council meetings ago. We had a meeting with Earth, just preparing a letter to be approved by CAO Mills, and then draft that for the city of Cornwall, or not city of Cornwall, sorry, Cornwall Electric. But that will be done before next council meeting.
Okay, thank you. And fire services, the fire protection ponds, Chief Robertson.
Just not much of an update. We're still working towards preparing or evaluating the resources and the assets at the location on Midway Road. And from there, once we have that information, we'll be reevaluating the agreements that we have with the user groups, users of that site. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from members of council in respect of any of those issues? Not seeing none. Thank you, everyone. I have a motion moved by Lyle Warden, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be resolved that the council of the township of South Glengarry convene to close session at 10:26 p.m. to discuss the following items under section 239 of the Municipal Act. A meeting or part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered is personal matters about identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, identifiable individual, verbal update. All in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thanks very much to the public and all the staff. Enjoy the rest of the week as the weather is supposed to get warmer.